Streaming live at ArizonaSports.com. The guys are powered by the law offices of Lerner and Rowe. In a record need a check? Make one call, that's all. 602-977-1900. And now on your ESPN station in Phoenix, ESPN 620, Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B.
Well, the NBA playoffs are heating up. The D-backs are in Philly for a 3-game series. The Suns have a new GM and an iconic head basketball coach in the NBA going to be going to the front office. Welcome into Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B. I'm Dan Manuch alongside Jackson Groff. We got Connor Collins back in the studios. We're out here at Wright Toyota, where you won't go wrong here at 78th Street and Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard. Jax, a lot going on. You feeling good? You ready to kind of break down a few things here and there? All good in the hood?
Yeah, feeling good. This morning, waking up to the news about Greg Popovich, it's sad. And another icon in the sport that decides to retire after 29 years. It's in San Antonio, the 3-run decade that they had over there, 5 NBA championships, a Hall of Famer. I think it was time. You saw periodically, month to month, week to week, some health scares from Popovich, takes a step back, and we've seen that before, whether that was Brad Stevens taking a role in the front office as the Celtics GM, Celtics front office man, and what the success they've done. I think Popovich had to deal with a lot of these moves that they've made recently, getting Wembanyama, getting Fox, with the possibility of getting Cooper Flagg, or even adding one of the other Duke players and Con Nipple or Malawatch to add to this core with the Spurs. I think it's a good move by him, and I think for them to promote someone within too. I know Spurs fans that I saw on Twitter aren't happy about it, but I would trust Mitch Johnson be the new head coach there, because I'm sure Greg Popovich had something to do with it.
Yeah, Greg Popovich is not retiring, folks. He's just being reassigned, or he's going to stay in the front office. They might make him like a Pat Riley, like a president, overseer, and just evaluator, whatever you want to call that. So to your point right there, Jackson broke the story. Greg Popovich stepping down as the San Antonio Spurs on Friday. Now, he had some health issues in which Mitch Johnson took over as interim head coach during the year last year. And the Spurs were probably going nowhere fast in reference to going to the playoffs. I mean, it's kind of like one of those, when you looked at a lot of those assistant coaches under Coach Pop. Mike Budenholzer being one of them. He moved on, went to Milwaukee, won an NBA title. Didn't fare very well here with the Phoenix Suns. So if you have the philosophy, you have the blueprint, you have the architect that got it going in Greg Popovich, I think Mitch Johnson is a good hire. Good, safe hire in reference to not missing any continuity. And the other thing I think, too, is that these coaches, this group of folks, Pop has developed this program and this process for San Antonio. Now it's just a matter of go and get more players. We saw Fox come there in the trade. You talked about Wemby. They're just going to continue to build. Now, if they can build with the model that Greg Popovich built over the years, to your point, with the NBA championships, I think they're in good hands.
Yeah, and I think you look at the salary cap and stuff. I mean, I think salary cap in the NBA, I mean, the NFL is even hard to track, but the NBA doesn't even seem like a thing. They're pretty much up there in the upper half of the league. They'll be able to make some splash moves next year. We'll see if they go out and get another free agent to pair up with Wembanyama or Fox, or go out and make a trade, depending on what happens with Giannis over there in Milwaukee. But this is a team just like Houston, just like OKC, some of those teams that have been in the dumps for the couple of years that started to make their way up with younger talent. And I think for Popovich, it's going to be fun to see him in that front office role, see what kind of trades he can maneuver, what he can do in the draft. He also drafted Kawhi Leonard back in the day when they won that title in 2014. So overall, a good move for him. And I think for his health-wise, not a lot of stress being in the front office versus being a head coach.
Well, the other big NBA news that broke before we got on the air yesterday, that the new Suns promote Brian Gregory to the general manager. James Jones is going to be pretty much reassigned. The comments, the disappointment, the angst by so many people over this, the pundits in the NBA, excuse me, and you heard me say yesterday, I was not happy with this at all. The comments that came out that were pretty much expected. It's like rearranging the chairs on the Titanic as it's sinking. And I'm glad I wasn't the only one that felt this way. And I think with Brian Gregory, he might be a good basketball evaluator of college talent. Never been a GM. He was in the front office last year. I don't know what his role was, but I will just say this is very disappointing. It's not the major changes that Matt Ishby had talked about when you're reassigning one James Jones and whoever knows what that role is. And for Brian Gregory, nothing against the guy. It's just that there's no experience there. You want somebody, I feel, that is an architect, that knows how to build it, knows how to maintain it, but first of all, knows how to basically set it, sketch it, take it to the contractors, and go from there. It's amazing how many people, I'd say 90% of what I saw last night, talking about tweets, the pundits, NBA on TV, all the above, are just miffed at this move by Matt Ishbia, the owner of the Suns.
It's one thing to grab somebody that doesn't have experience, but let me back up real quick. It's one thing to not grab someone that doesn't have any experience, and I'm going to compare this to the NFL with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They hired James Gladstone, their new GM. Well, he had a long venture with the Los Angeles Rams behind Les Snead. And you know the success that they've had both in the draft and with free agency and trading and being a Super Bowl winning team. They got someone with no experience, but some place where you've seen them win and be successful. Matt Ishbia didn't do that. Matt Ishbia grabbed someone that's been in the Suns organization, that's been a dumpster fire, that he's basically going to be the yes man, or Matt Ishbia is going to have a bigger role, let's face it, in the ownership, in the front office because of this guy. And it's not a shot at Brian Gregory. We all hope, and I heard the pundits at Arizona Sports and everyone talk about this, Locked On Phoenix Suns, wherever, we all hope this goes well. But you can only assess a guy with what his reputation is, and there's nothing. And with all the comments that Matt Ishbia said in his post-season presser, talking about how he doesn't pull the strings and he doesn't run the front office moves, because of this moves, he is going to have more of a voice. It's a shakeup, and to your point, Manuch, I mean, if you were to go out there, and what's the perspective of all the other NBA teams on this? Were they also looking at Brian Gregory? Because if they were not, then this is a horrible move by your part, because Brian Gregory's name, I'm sure, wasn't even thrown in the equation of these other teams looking for GM.
This is, to me, Matt Ishbia should have said, look, we're looking to reevaluate. We've got a lot of talent in the front office. We'll reevaluate which way we want to go as far as our head coach. To me, this is so underwhelming, such a disappointment. And I really believe when you look at, there's a lot of, we talked about the Bob Myers of the world, the David Griffins of the world that are out there. They've been there. They've done that. They know what it takes. They have the blueprint. They have the contractors. They know what kind of coaches are out there. They've got all of that. Why would you go down this road is unbeknownst to me. So when Matt Ishbia has his presser, and we don't know yet when his presser is going to be, if it's going to be Monday or Tuesday, to introduce Brian Gregory to the public, so to speak. I just don't get it. And now if I looked at other assistant GMs in the NBA, I would go down that road. Okay, let's look. Who's the assistant GM for the Pistons? Probably not going to get that GM. Who's the assistant GM for, I don't know, Cleveland?
The
Cavaliers.
Thunder.
The Thunder. I can go down that list. Who are guys involved to take those teams basically from the ashes and rise them like the Phoenix, pardon the pun, and help them get there, versus a guy that college coach, fired a couple times, might be a good guy, good communicator, all the above. I don't know. I just sometimes if I'm going to have brain surgery, I want to make sure I've got a surgeon, okay? Brain surgeon. I don't want an auto mechanic or anything else like that. Kind of a crude exaggeration. But I think you know where I'm going down the road.
Yeah, I just can't believe you wouldn't even sniff at grabbing someone from another organization versus a guy that's been around the organization since 2023.
2 minutes.
And he's been around all the stuff that's been going on. What's he going to change? He's going to go along the same methods and the same routines that's been hurting the Phoenix Suns. And knock, knock. This is probably the biggest offseason for the Phoenix Suns that you've probably seen in a long time, Manuch, as a Suns fan.
I hope.
And if you're another GM, you're poaching, you're saying, okay, well, you got this Brian Gregory guy who's never been a GM. We're going to offer him the low ball for Kevin Durant and not any more first-round picks and make him look bad. Like Nico Harrison looked bad with that trade with the Lakers. That could happen with Brian Gregory. I mean, we hope that this doesn't happen. But from what we can see with this Brian Gregory guy, it's just an unbelievable move that you look at the resume with
the head scratcher,
Matt Ishbia, and what Stephen A. Smith said a couple weeks ago. I mean, this also adds to the terrible moves that Matt Ishbia continues to make.
We'll get into this a little bit more. Greg Moore from Arizona Republic, a sports columnist, will join us at 3 o'clock. We'll get his thoughts. He was a fan of James Jones. And
1 minute.
Jones. This one's a head scratcher. So at 3 o'clock, we'll catch up with Greg Moore, Arizona Republic sports columnist following the Suns. Also, the D-backs, they start at 3:45 this afternoon. That'll be over 98.7 after we get off the air. Don't leave until we get off the air at 4 o'clock. But that game starts at 3:45. Merrill Kelly taking on Jesus Lazardo. Also, Ketel Marte, some late news here that he will be in the lineup, probably going to be at second base tonight. A couple other things that are going on. Why wouldn't this be, Jack? Mike Trout is going on the injured list again with a bone bruise in his left knee. If this guy could stay healthy for just an entire season, the numbers that this guy has, the numbers that he would have definitely would be off the charts. He just can't stay healthy in a Major League Baseball season. And when I think of the Mike Trouts of what they could have been, I almost liken him to the way Mickey Mantle was, a 5-tool player who started to have that bad knee and pretty much didn't have the kind of surgeries they have now. He really struggled the last 3 or 4 years of his career. So for you Angels fans, Mike Trout is out. And for you Kentucky Derby fans, the field's been reduced to 19 with the scratch of Grande, leaving owner Mike Rapoli shocked because all indications were, and I read this morning, Jack, that the horse has been training. The horse is good to go. They said that the horse had how did they put that? His right heel on his right leg had a slight bruise on it. So they don't want to take the chance of running him in the Derby.
Wow.
And Rapoli's been in, I believe it's been 18 derbies. He's over as far as the Derby is concerned.
Clear
So
for
he's
break.
definitely
Clear for
out
break.
in reference to all that's going on. Hey, our State 48 Roofing It's Your Call question of the day. State 48 Roofing, the #1 referred roofer in Arizona, proudly serving the Arizona residential and commercial markets for over a decade. For free quote, repair, or installation, head to state48roofing.com and follow them on social media by searching #SexyRoofStatus. Do you agree or disagree with Suns owner Matt Ishbia naming Brian Gregory the new general manager? Real simple. A, agree, like promoting within, or B, disagree, has no GM experience. Let's go to @Roc and Manuch on Twitter, and you can cast your vote in reference to the hiring of all that's going on over at the Suns complex. We're coming up next. It's our replay rewind from last night's sounds from the D-backs and NBA. That's all right here on ESPN 620, 98.7 HD2, and streaming live on ArizonaSports.com. That's ArizonaSports.com as we are live at Wright Toyota.
Now, it's time for our Replay Rewind. The top sounds of the night and whatever Rock decides to add. Let's get to it in Replay Rewind with Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B on ESPN 620 and on FM at 98.7 HD2.
Bridges to toss it in to Brunson. Defended by Thompson. 15 seconds left. Brunson takes a peek at the clock. Thompson digging in defensively. 8 seconds. Brunson stops on a dime. Launches. Oh, yeah! Jalen Brunson buries it. Knicks lead by 3. The Brunson burner ignited.
About 40 seconds left in this clip. 40 seconds left in the clip.
Movement. Beasley. Harris falls down. Hardaway. Back for Cunningham. Swing it. Off the hands of Beasley. Out of bounds. Pistons turn it over. 0.4 on the clock. Detroit didn't get the shot off. The Knicks take care of business. They wrap up the series.
About 10 seconds left. I'm making Mike's hot for you.
And move on to the second round. Jalen Brunson. He's the hero. 116 to 113 the final.
Thank you to TNT for the final minute. It would seem like an eternity for those Piston fans. Jalen Brunson's clutch 3 in the final seconds to win that series in the fourth quarter, 116 to 113. The Knicks win this series 4-2. They will now move on and take on the Boston Celtics. Today's Replay Rewind brought to you by Lerner and Rowe. Interact, need a check. Make one call, that's all, 602-977-1900. And always at learnandrow.com. They can help. Get a free consultation. Again, one call, that's all, 602-977-1900. How about Brunson? Clutch time, dribbling down to about, 4 or 5 seconds. And then that final possession by the Pistons for Beasley to just fumble it, go off his hands, go out of bounds, and not even get a shot off in that last second.
Yeah, it's been a wild series. Honestly, these first-round series, I'm not a huge NBA guy, but the NBA playoffs, the physicality and letting these players play, I was shocked to even say Jalen Brunson play 42 minutes in this game. The last 2 games, he's been hobbling. You can tell the Pistons are kind of playing that bad boy basketball, bruising them up a little bit. But when you need a shot most, 40 points, Jalen Brunson again continues to show why he's one of the best players in the NBA. And this was a game to me, Manuch. I thought the Pistons were going to win. Just again, like them playing at home, the Knicks haven't been able to, get one at home against the Pistons unless it was that, no call they had the other night a couple weeks ago for this Pistons game against the Knicks. But yeah, shout out to the Knicks, man. They've got 4 guys that played 40 plus minutes. And they got the job done against a Pistons team that was not supposed to be in the playoffs. Future's bright, but man, you got a Knicks Celtics series. It brings you back to those old days. Huh?
Yeah, it really does. You just wonder if the Knicks have got enough firepower to take on that Celtics team. And again, the Knicks, pretty much this Pistons team made a nice comeback, gallant comeback there in that fourth quarter, outscoring the Knicks 28-20. But again, Jalen Brunson, Mr. Clutch. The final seconds of that game to make all that happen in reference to that. Then the other game. That's right. It's going to be the Clippers are forcing a Game 7. And it was just interesting to see how much the James Hardens of the world, the Kawhi Leonards of the world played in reference to getting this game to Game 7 as they'll head back to Denver. Here's James Harden talking about forcing that Game 7.
Being aggressive. Either win or go home. So a lot of opportunities to be aggressive, and I took them. We did a good job game planning, see what we needed to make corrections on, and did it. So one more game. It's like win or go home. So we didn't want to go home. We got one more game left in a couple of days. Figure out what we got to do better. Still a lot of mental mistakes, a lot of execution that we can get better at, and then go out there and take it.
Yeah, this is one of those series where it may go down to the final wire. And when I watch Harden and I watch his team, going at it, and on the other side, he's got his old teammates. He's got Westbrook on the other side, that they're going back and forth. And you look at Murray and Westbrook and the Joker, and then you look at Kawhi Leonard and James Harden and that group. This might be one of the more evenly matched quarterfinals, Jacks, that we could ever imagine. And you know what? They're going to have to play a lot of minutes. I mean, that's just going to be the crux of it, because it's win or go home in a Game 7. As a matter of fact, James Harden talks about playing another 47 to 48 minutes.
You have to Absolutely. Like, it is what it is. You know, and it's a part of it. So, you know, whatever the team needs, 47, 48, overtime, whatever, you know, I'm going to do it.
And James Harden always seems to be that guy. He always seems so smooth, does he not? When he's out there running the point or the two guard, creating his own shots. But it seems as though you've seen a more balanced James Harden, you know, dishing the ball off. He's not taking those wild shots that I think a lot of people thought he might. But you're seeing that balance. You're seeing him take control of the ball. And one of those things that you kind of think about when you watch James Harden is, you know, as I talked about, the assists and the way that he makes things going. A couple of those things are, you know, he had 8 assists in last night's game. Daniel had a double-double, 28 points, the 8 assists. As far as getting that ball out and spreading the basketball, Powell, Harden, Zubac, and Leonard all with double figures. That's the kind of balance I think that this Clippers team is looking forward to going into Game 7.
Yeah, both teams are similar. Both teams don't have a lot of bench play, and I think that's where the Nuggets in Game 7, if you want to have an edge, Jokic has got to play better. Even though he scored 25 points yesterday, I thought Zubac bodied him down low in the blocks, kind of made him not a factor in the second half there. And then for the Clippers, it's going to come down to Kawhi and Harden, and the X factor for them, too, has also been Powell, especially late. Hit that late three when the Nuggets were down 6. It looked like, you know, if they had to stop, they'd be able to crunch that deficit down. He makes a huge 3 to extend it to 9 points. It's a superstar game. Both teams not deep. Both teams are going to have to play 40, 45 plus minutes. And same with Murray too. He 21 points yesterday. Again, some of these superstars, if it was anyone else, 21 points would be a good game, but you expect those guys to have 25, 30 points, especially when guys like Porter and Gordon aren't producing like they usually do.
You know, and the guy that we, I don't want to say we dog, we just speculate with Kawhi Leonard. Here's a guy that doesn't play much during the season. He's missed the playoffs, you know, a couple of years ago, or a couple times he's missed the playoffs, but he's looking to savor every moment. Here's Kawhi Leonard talking about, you know, not taking the playoffs for granted anymore.
I'm enjoying every game. Like I said before, you know, I've been on the sidelines last couple of years in the playoffs, so I don't take it for granted, and I just try to cherish every moment. And thank God that I'm in.
Thank you to NBA TV for those last 2 clips of James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. And I agree, you know, it's like, you know, he's been injured, he's been hurt. He looks fresh, he looks good. So I don't know, Jackson, with the last second shot, maybe Denver pulls it up, maybe the Clippers pull it up. But to your point, the superstars playing in this kind of a game is what makes it exciting for a lot of people to want to watch this game.
Yeah, I think for the Clippers, they're going to have to hope for a game. I think it was Game 3 or Game 4, I believe, where the Clippers went on the road and won at the Nuggets. And in that game, Kawhi Leonard had almost 25, 28 points in that game. Just they could not stop him. I think he shot 90%, like 9 of 10 from the field, dominant from the three-point line. He's going to have that takeover game to kind of silence the crowd early. It's a toss-up for me. I'm curious what Scott Spreitzer has to say later from a betting perspective, because obviously at 2:30 when he comes on, I lean Nuggets just based at home, the altitude. I think those are the type of games that Jokic will take over. But, man, I'm just happy. Nothing's better than sports at this time of year than Game 6.
I think last time I checked, the spread's 1.5 Clippers. If I'm not mistaken, you can check me on that. Yesterday, the D-backs win 4-2. They win 2 out of 3. They win the series from the New York Mets. And a guy that's really starting to heat up is Perdomo. Here's Perdomo's solo home run in the top of the 5th.
Swung on, drilled, deep right field. Back it goes. Soto is out of room, gone. 5th of the year for Geraldo Perdomo. And the D-backs get that run right back. It's now 3-1.
Top of the 7th, excuse me. Thank you to the Diamondbacks Radio Network, Arizona Sports 98.7. And then a young man that's got 5 home runs so far. It looks like he'll be out of lineup tonight because Ketel Marte, as we understand, is back for tonight's game. Looks like he's going to be going to second base. Tewa, who's doing an outstanding job, a yeoman's job, he gets his 5th home run. This is in the top of the 9th for a little insurance run for the D-backs.
And Tawa swings, hits a high fly ball towards left. Nimmo going back onto the warning track and now feeling for the wall. That ball is gone. Home run for Tawa, his 5th. And the D-backs claw one back to start the 9th inning. It is now 4-2.
And last but not least, Ginkel's back in the fold. Boy, did he come in and do an outstanding job. Here's the Ginkel strikeout in the top of the 8th that really saved a big rally against the Mets.
3-2 to Brandon Nimmo.
You guys are clear to toss. Clear to toss.
Ginkel strands 2.
You guys are back.
And there we have that Ginkel at the top of the 8th inning, pretty much take control of business. So the Diamondbacks tonight, they start that 3-game series against the Phillies. You got Merrill Kelly going against Luzardo tonight. Luzardo having a very good year. Hopefully they can keep the streak going. Just to let you know, this is Roc and Manuch, Jimmy B on ESPN 620 on FM at 98.7 HD and HD2, plus all our shows on the Arizona Sports app as we are live from Wright Toyota.
Time to talk about the business side of sports. Leading expert in the business of sports, author of the new bestseller, The Sport Business Handbook, host of Power of Sports, and architect of over 100 deals worth billions in sports, the sports professor Rick Horrow joins Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B on ESPN 620.
That's right. He truly is a sports professor right here on Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B. Rick, it's Manuch alongside Jack. Roc has got the assignment at the Fiesta Bowl because they have their, I guess we have to call it now the Fiesta Bowl Invitational, since they got the coaches from around the college football, coaches from around the nation, athletic directors. So he's literally on assignment over to Biltmore, helping those coaches out do whatever. He might be carrying bags, cleaning golf balls, I don't know, changing out tee boxes. So he's literally on assignment this afternoon.
Did they give him a parking space?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Mike Morocco. Are you kidding me?
Well, that's one. So he's leading in parking spaces provided. Morocco 1, Horrow 0. Okay, good. That's fine. Wonderful. Thank you.
You bet. Hey,
very nice.
As we put a wrap on the draft last week, what kind of, first of all, 275,000? Was that kind of the final number that they had throughout the week? And when you have 275,000 people in Green Bay, Wisconsin, what kind of revenue dollars do you feel they might have generated there in Green Bay, Wisconsin?
More than $100 million, even more, because, people go up there. They just don't go to Green Bay and come back. They go up to Baraboo and Wisconsin Dells, and they realize what northern Wisconsin is all about, even in April. And let's put it in perspective. The whole city has 106,000 population. There are 5,000 serviceable hotel rooms. There are 1,000 houses that were basically Airbnb. So where are people going to stay? Well, they drive in, they drive out. And one of the things that's really important, the idiot at Radio City Music Hall that let the lease expire and let the NFL start moving from 2015, Chicago, Goodell's living room, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Cleveland, going to Pittsburgh next year. At the end of the day, this is an asset that is not as big as the Super Bowl, bigger than the Pro Bowl, but it's something that the NFL is proud of moving every single year, and it is an institution.
And so, Rick, when they look at the viewing numbers, TV only, cable only, how are they putting it together? Streaming only? Or is it just a combination of all the above?
It's all of the above, and some would say, 3 networks simulcasting the draft is a little bit overkill, but ESPN and ABC both want the brand, and ABC did it Thursday night. ESPN carried the day, the rest of it. NFL Network, what the hell else are they going to do? And at the end of the day, this is one of those things where it set record viewership in every context. And this is one of those things where the draft is made for 30-second sound bites. It's something that automatically it's kind of a guarantee that people are going to be watching. And people not only going to be watching, but people are going to be watching it over time, and they're going to be watching the snippets. And I've had a lot of fun with it all over the week because I have, lived my life in the last week because it's important to emulate my heroes, grading everything because everybody grades the draft. So, my shower this morning, because I ended up washing my hair. I don't usually do that on a Friday. I got an A-. Could have been better. Could have been quicker. These last 2 minutes of the show we just did, got a B+. Your intro wasn't that great, but it could have been better. And, we'll see how it performs over time. So everything I do from the end of this broadcast, maybe through the end of my life, we're going to put a grade to.
What kind of revenue do you think we could generate with this segment?
Well, the amount of revenue we've generated in the past, very little.
Rick Horrow, the sports professor, our guest here on the Right to Guest Line.
Speaking of ABC earlier, Rick, with the Lakers being out of the playoffs 4-1, is that going to take a dip in the ratings for the next coming rounds as more small market teams like the Thunder and Cleveland and even the Timberwolves are starting to advance through, or do you think that the NBA ratings will be fine?
I personally love watching the Thunder and the Cavaliers, and it doesn't really matter what population they are. and what market they represent. It's the new breed of basketball where, God forbid you play a little defense and then you go to the hot guy and you don't just back in on the key. And I think all of this is good for the NBA. Clearly you would love to have, in some context, all the New York teams and, both LA teams and Chicago, but it doesn't happen. And I think Adam Silver should be very happy with the way things are. I've done a few interviews this week with a couple of the guys, the small market guys. The head of the Thunder, who's a good friend, not just the owner, but also Peter Fagan, who is the president of the Bucks. And he took it on the chin, not only because of Lillard, but also because of the way they got kind of bounced in the series. I don't think it matters to me or to anybody else what the market is they represent, as long as they're stable. You buy one, 30-second, ultimately, of a international marketing brand. It almost doesn't really matter whether it's small market, big market. The television revenue, by and large, shared on a national basis. The NBA looks more like the NFL as far as its ability to help small market teams. The outlier, obviously, Major League Baseball with its large television contracts with the Yankees and the Dodgers and the like. But the NBA doing pretty darn well.
Rick Horrow joining us here on the Right to the Guest. Thank you to him at Rick Horrow. All right, Rick, there's another big event coming up this weekend. I imagine you're driving to Louisville, Kentucky right now for the Kentucky Derby. I understand it's a 3-day brouhaha party, all the above. But when you talk about Louisville and the Kentucky Derby, how many people are coming into town? What kind of revenue are we looking to generate there for a 3-day event?
Well, I'm actually driving to another kind of race, but this is the two-legged mammal kind instead of the four-legged mammal kind, the Miami Grand Prix, which is this weekend too.
Nice. That's
generating about $500 million of economic impact. But if your question is about the Derby, it's the shortest event that generates over $100 million in history. A minute and a half or two and a half minutes for $100 million. But obviously, it's not just the race; it's the parties, it's the weekend, it's all of the celebrations around Churchill Downs. Churchill Downs used the event of the Derby every year for their $181 million renovation. So it is a big deal. And of course, everybody will tune in this week, and they'll tune in 2 weeks. And if it happens to be the same horse, they'll tune in 5 weeks to see if it's Triple Crown. If it's not, then we have the same malaise about horse racing you'll be waiting for next year.
You said you're headed to the Grand Prix. Is it there in Miami? And did you say it's looking to generate $500 million or billion? Did you use the word B as in $1 billion generated?
$585 million over a 3-day, 4-day race weekend. They're expecting
2 minutes.
1,000 people, about 85,000 a day over the 4 days. And it is, more important than anything, international. You look at Miami as an international destination anyway, but then you add South Americans and Europeans and Far Easterners and all of those who will come to South Florida and spend a week, and the revenues are off the charts. Remember, this is a facility that Steve Ross has done on his own, built the tennis center and the racing autodrome around Hard Rock Stadium.
1 minute.
How much does one of those Formula One cars cost these days? Is it over $1 million per car?
Yeah, it's about the $29.95 if you as an old version if the sticker falls off. It is. Listen, the McLaren deal is $200 million. The deal that Verstappen is looking at to get out of his Red Bull deal is $300 million, and it's the car, the spare car, the entity that services the car, and the like. So, this ain't one of those deals where Mike Morocco, takes his 57 Chevy and goes down to the corner and tries to get a free parking space. This is serious business.
Well, I got to tell you what, we got a couple of nice Jeeps up here in the showroom at Wright Toyota that from circa 1974. That's a cool $200,000. So for you, Rick, we'll throw in the Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B deal. We'll get you a great deal on that bad boy.
$200,000 with a Roc, Manuch, and Jimmy B bumper sticker. $185,000.
You're the best, big fella. Well, enjoy the Grand Prix. I wear your earplugs. It's pretty loud when those bad boys are going around the city. So as always, we appreciate it. Catch up with you next week.
What? I can't hear you. All right, talk to you next week. Bye.
He's just so clever, so sharp. Hey, Rick is sponsored today by All City Towing. Join the team at the largest towing company in the state, All City Towing. They are hiring dispatchers, call takers, lot attendants, drivers, and customer service personnel. You can enjoy the benefits like the state's most advanced towing equipment. You can set your work schedules, healthy 401k employer match, health benefits, employer-paid life insurance, and a monthly fuel allowance. So you basically take your career to the next level in this new year. So do it now. All you have to do is visit them at allcitytowing.com. That's allcitytowing.com. All City Towing, where your future is on the move. Well, coming up, we take a look at On This Day in Football at 50 as you're listening to Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B right here on ESPN 620 and on FM at 98.7 HD2 as we are live from Wright Toyota.
Now, time for your Wright Toyota On This Day report. Wright Toyota, right on the corner, right on the price. Wright Toyota in Scottsdale.
All right, Jax, let's go back 14 years ago in 2011. Osama bin Laden was killed by U.S. forces at 1 a.m. local time in Pakistan. But from our perspective, President Obama announced it to us the night before at 11:30 p.m. Eastern on May 1st. So that all kind of went down. That was one of those big wins. This next
Hold on.
Yeah.
I have a little story with Osama bin Laden.
Oh, okay.
The killer, Robert O'Neill, is from Butte, Montana. My freshman year at the University of Montana, he spoke in front of the entire team, spoke about the whole Osama bin Laden killing him, the entire story. He also talked about how he was a part of the Captain Phillips capturing, that he was taking his daughter to kindergarten that morning. And by the afternoon, he was in the middle of the ocean capturing Captain Phillips. And then on top of that, I forget the movie with Mark Wahlberg. I think it was Lone Survivor. He was also part of that team, too, that got the Lone Survivor. So, a little snippet there. The story of how he killed Osama bin Laden, it was one of the most – I've never been so locked into somebody talking in my life. But I had to say that real quick because it brought me back to my freshman year when he talked about how he killed Osama.
I appreciate the motivation that he could tell you. Why has Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B not had him on the air yet? You got that Montana connection.
I don't. He's a busy man.
Oh, I bet he is.
He knows the head coach, obviously, but I have no contact of him whatsoever. So,
that's
unfortunately not.
Great story. Hats off to him, and thank you for your service. This one I had a little bone to pick because I never saw this fight, Jax. 2015, Floyd Mayweather Jr. uses his reach and jab to frustrate Manny Pacquiao, and he remains unbeaten with 48 fights, cementing his legacy as the best of his generation. So he beats him. So we pay for this fight. We got Cox, and we're paying for it. And first time we've done this. So we're at home, and Lori and I are making dinner. We see the pre-fights, right? So the pre-fight, the first one, the second one. And there's probably going to be like 45 minutes before Pacquiao and Mayweather comes on. All of a sudden, screen freezes. Well, okay, no big deal. Freeze. It's a constant freeze for like 10 minutes. I'm like, this is not good. Call Cox. We are aware of the outage. We're aware of the freeze. We are aware of the issues going on with the Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather fight. Never saw the fight, Jax. Froze the entire time.
It always happens when the fight starts. It's always the main fight.
Yeah, it was like a half hour before the main fight. We saw the one. Funny how that happens, huh? Jackson, when you think about that. Anyways, they did refund us for the fight about a month and a half later on our Cox bill. But that's one of the best fights I guess I never saw. And you know what? The irony of it all, it's the first one I ever paid for. Because a lot of them going early on back in the year, I would say early, mid-'80s, when you had Mike Tyson fighting on United Cable, when those were those pay-per-view fights. Well, a good buddy of mine was a salesman for United Cable who were officed in the Scottsdale Airport, just down the street here from Wright Toyota. So he invited us over. We bring the pizza. He worked there, so they had the fight. See, we went there in their big room, big conference room. We watched the fights, and that's been long gone. United Cable's gone. So that's the only other time I watched one of those fights, but didn't leave a very good taste. To this day, I will not do another pay-per-view per se. Depends what it is. 1999, John Elway announces his retirement from the National Football League. And in 1988, Reds manager Pete Rose is suspended for 30 days for pushing an umpire. That's right. When he was a manager for the Cincinnati Reds, 30-day suspension for pushing the umpire. On this day, presented by Vans Golf Shops in Arizona, serving golfers since 1963. Their unprecedented service, exclusive 90-day satisfaction guarantee, and custom club fitting is the cornerstone of their business and has made them a proven leader in the golf retail throughout the Southwest. Head to worldwidegolfshops.com. That's worldwidegolfshops.com for a location near you. All right, give us a little football 50 music back there, Connor.
The New York Giants selected one of the best pass rushing prospects in recent history, recent seasons, and I think the best defensive player in the draft, Abdul Carter at number 3. Great value of confidence and his ability that will translate to the skill level into the NFL. Carter wore number 11 at Penn State. As people know from Penn State, this number was previously worn by LeVar Arrington, Micah Parsons, then Abdul Carter, and now it's worn by LeVar Arrington Jr., who will be the next upcoming pass rusher for sure. He'll go top 5 and be a dominant pass rusher this season. I think he's a true freshman. Saw some clips from him at the spring game. Oh, my gosh.
He's a dude.
Continue to reload pass rushers. Well, former quarterback Phil Simms, remember him? Won 2 Super Bowls in New York while wearing number 11. He recently talked about what would happen if a Giants player asks for his blessing. It's going to be hard to outdo Sims, I should say, in New York, as he's considered to be one of the greatest players in franchise history. But Abdul Carter himself wants to try to get number 11. He tried to get number 56 from Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor said, I don't know if it's going to happen, Manuch. I think it'd be cool to see, somebody wear 11 in the Giants, but I think if Bill Sims wants someone to wear 11, it would be a quarterback, not a pass rusher.
Yeah, I think that's a moot point. I don't think number 11 is going to happen. Matter of fact, Bill Sims came out in the same draft I did, 1979. He went to the Giants, and he was, I think, a Western Kentucky. I never even heard of Phil Sims. But an outstanding quarterback, goes to the Giants. As a matter of fact, he was in the mix as far as starting. He played a little bit his rookie year, but Phil is an icon in New York. He went on to be a fine broadcaster. But I don't know. I think that Carter's going to probably look at – he talked about zero, not 00, but zero as being one of the other ones that he might take a good look at. But I don't think 56 and 11 are going to be on the nameplate of one Abdul Carter.
So we're one day away from the 151st Kentucky Derby race at historic Churchill Downs. And get this, there's multiple coaches, players, NFL personalities. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers and his crew will be there for tomorrow at Churchill Downs. But a specific person and a horse fan, that's the wide receiver from the Carolina Panthers, Xavier Legette, announced that he will be serving as the NFL's social correspondent for this iconic race on Friday and Saturday. And why is that a big deal? It's because he's been riding horses since he was 5. And he's got one of the best damn voices I've ever heard in my entire life, being Xavier Legette. So if you're a fan of great content, social content, be sure to see the NFL page for Xavier Legette, because that's a guy that will eat skunk, squirrel, all that type of things. He's such a special dude. I always look forward to like those interviews, and I think it's so cool for the NFL to have someone like that that's not afraid to express their personality.
Quick story, right? So we're down in Fort Lauderdale. That we're training at the Dodgers complex. So we're getting ready to go play the San Diego Chargers in the first playoff game going back to 1980, right? So we go down to Vero Beach. That's where the Dodgers complex was. But Fort Lauderdale's not too far. So we go down and we're training. Well, my good buddy Rosie Duncan, or Sonny Duncan, was our fullback at K-State. They lived in Fort Pierce, which is real close there as well, too. Now, he always used to talk about having barbecued coon, raccoon, barbecued squirrel, like you talked about, and a lot of game that's out there. So I'm down there at Vero Beach, and he's in Fort Pierce. They invite me to dinner. It was on Wednesday night. So I go down there, and we had barbecued squirrel and also barbecued raccoon. So we had that, plus we had fried chicken, just in case.
3 minutes, 3 minutes.
So Sonny invites me in. He's got the whole family there. I'm down there getting ready for the playoff game, which I might be starting against the San Diego Chargers. I got to tell you what, the squirrel tasted pretty good. The raccoon, a little gamey, from that standpoint. But it was, he goes, Manuch, come on down. We got some barbecued squirrel and some barbecued coon. I went, okay, I'm up for it. It's a free dinner.
That's
saved by per diem. So just to kind of along those lines of guys that eat some unorthodox food out there down south.
Big season for Arizona State football after bouncing back from last year was a magical, and I think the biggest surprise in all of college football last year, they win the transfer portal. They got a bunch of transfers, an Alabama wide receiver, a Clemson corner. Well, they just added another commitment from top-rated junior college pass rusher Joshua Shanklin. Now, he took an official visit to ASU, Missouri, West Virginia, Ole Miss, and UCLA before deciding to go to the Sun Devils.
2 minutes, 2 minutes.
From Foothill College in Los Altos, California, the #1 overall recruit, top 5 recruit in JUCO. That's something that you don't see a lot in today's college football, is JUCO recruits getting recruited. And that's one thing that the transfer portal has kind of diminished, is JUCO players not getting an opportunity. You got to be pretty much a top 5 #1 player like this guy to get an opportunity. And this shows again that Kenny Dillingham continues to be a top recruit because he's relatable. He's a hell of a coach. He's a great recruiter. This is huge for Arizona State. I'm looking forward. They could be even better next year.
Yeah, our good buddy John Caldwell, who's an avid listener of Roc and Manuch, Jimmy B, he had tweeted me this yesterday, or texted me, I should say, and said, ASU's got a dude. He's very familiar with this young man out of Foothills College in Los Altos. He's, as you mentioned, Jax, one of the top, if not the top, edge rusher, defensive lineman coming out of junior college football. So that's another good get. by Kenny Dillingham and his staff, which that's about the 12th hit that they've gotten here in the offseason.
This team was picked to finish last in the Big 12 media poll almost a year ago. Now they're probably going to be favored as the number one seed in the Big 12. It's a hell of a story what Kenny Dillingham's doing. Hopefully the Valley will surround and activate over there they got going on right here.
Hey, Football 50 is brought to you by Arena Sports Grill. If you're looking for a place to watch and bet the Derby, Arena Sports Grill. They have a great OTV, and the place will be packed. Arena Sports Grill, located on 62nd Street, Bell Road, just west of here of Black Tree. Coming up in hour number 2, we'll get you on top of all the stories and what has been going on the entire day. And last night, we also catch up with sports handicapper Scott Spreitzer of DocSports.com. That's all next on Roc and Manuch. Jimmy B right here on ESPN 620 and on 98.7 HD2 if you're live from Wright Toyota.
B now on ESPN 620, 98.7 FM HD2, and streaming live at ArizonaSports.com. The guys are powered by the law offices of Lerner and Rowe. In a wreck and need a check? Make one call, that's all. 602-977-1900. And now on your ESPN station in Phoenix, ESPN 620, Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B.
Welcome into hour number 2, Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B, Dan Manucci alongside Jack Sproff. We also got Connor Collins back at the fine ESPN studios. We are out here at Wright Toyota, where you won't go wrong. A lot of great deals going on. A lot of folks out here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tables being used right now as deals are being made. I just see right now a sold sign as you got one of the reps out here signing off. So come on out here to Wright Toyota all weekend long, as they have got a going on, as I like to say, Jax. Some of the news that's happening right now: Greg Popovich, the winningest coach in NBA history and 4-time NBA championship, has had some health struggles. He's going to step aside. Looks like he's going to move up into the front office. He is not retiring. He is basically saying he's going to move up. According to reports from ESPN NBA insider Shams Charania, that reported that Pop will be stepping down and then moving up. It looks as though new coach laying in wait as far as all the things that they're going to have are some of the things that I think was probably in the works when he stepped aside. And I think in stepping aside about midway through the season, Jax, is what he took a good hard look at. And when you see a guy like, Greg Popovich, it's like trying to get him out would be take everything you could. But Mitch Johnson, the interim head coach, will be now taking over for the San Antonio Spurs. What a great run that Greg Popovich had with that San Antonio franchise.
Yeah, 5-time NBA champion, 1999, 2003, 2005, 2007, and 2014. Probably my favorite one, a little biased because that was the year when they played the Miami Heat, the Big Three. You thought the Miami Heat were going to get it done, but unfortunately they did not. The Spurs won that. NBA's all-time leads winner, 1,422 wins, 869 losses, 3-time NBA Coach of the Year, 170 playoffs wins, which is the most for a single franchise. He coached 6 Hall of Famers: Robinson, Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, Wilkins, and Gasol. I think it's a right move for him, and I think him alongside a lot of any type of sports coach, they can just never get away from the game fully. So I think it's cool that he still has a passion for it. With Wembanyama, who's an absolute star, I think it's going to be cool to see him sit back and kind of be the orchestrator, be the puppeteer of a team that's trying to rebuild. They did a great job getting Stephon Castle, won Defensive Rookie of the Year. They can build around. De'Aaron Fox is a bright point guard, still young, alongside Wembanyama. So I'm really interested to see, one, if the Spurs and if the NBA is a little rigged in the lottery, where the Spurs somehow get the number 1 pick when Greg Popovich steps away, and they want Wembanyama to have another young star alongside Fox and Wembanyama and Cooper Flagg. I surely wouldn't mind it, even though if it's a little rigged, so be it. It's great for the product. But I'm interested to see what, the Spurs, can they take that next step, kind of like what the Rockets have been doing and the Thunder have been doing, because they've been kind of, in the last 5 years, just been establishing picks, trading, older guys and, foundational pieces away while they can, and try to, build for the future.
Well, here the thing is a lot of folks really don't question this conversion from Mitch Johnson, who took over as interim head coach during the season as Coach Pop was having his health woes. And to your point, yeah, he's one of those guys that he wants to stay involved. And I think the main reason, Jax, why he's staying involved is because of Wembanyama. Bringing him over here, helping him out, nurturing him, and not bringing him in the organization and then just abandoning him. I think that he wants to remain involved. But the one thing you look at in reference to, Greg Popovich, he's already a member of the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. There's not many guys that, whether they're players or coaches, that go into a Hall of Fame. And he went into a Hall of Fame. You talked about the championships. That mid-'90s era was all about San Antonio. Think about that. Think about San Antonio. Then you think of, and then the mid-2000s, 10 years later, from 2004 to 2008. The thing that impressed me about Greg Popovich, his staff, his general manager, they always kept the cupboards full. They were never rebuilding. Now, you talked about Parker, Ginobili, Robinson, Duncan, Big Shot Bob. You think of Sean Elliott. So many guys who are huge parts of those San Antonio teams, but they never really faltered. They were always in the playoffs. They were always in the Western Conference Finals or the finals. And you think of that 4 or 5 year period of time when they were basically, you think of, the early 2000s, that team was always in the hunt. They never really wandered or wavered as far as rebuilding was concerned.
Suns fans, or not Suns fans, but Suns front office, you see what the Spurs doing getting a young head coach. I think that matters. I think if you go, even if it's a guy that doesn't have a lot of experience, but he's been around Popovich, you apply that to the Phoenix Suns, I think they've got to go young for this next coach, because all these older guys, you have to have some kind of correlation between the players and the coaches. There can't be a barrier in between, and it seems like the last 3 years, ever since Monty Williams, they just have not figured that out, where a head coach and the team can be on the same page. That all matters in the NBA, especially a league with a bunch of egos.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of folks don't really know who Brian Gregory is. We know he coached a lot of college basketball. He was back as an assistant for Tom Izzo when Matt Ishbia was playing basketball. He came in here last year. He basically helped orchestrate getting Brian Dunn and also Oso Ighodaro as far as coming on, but really not a lot of basketball experience per se as far as a general manager. The guy knows the game, probably knows the NBA game fairly well too. So when this hit yesterday, a lot of us really didn't know a lot about Brian Gregory. Well, yesterday on Burns and Gambo, John Gambadoro had a good chance to kind of break down and enlighten all of us who Brian Gregory is.
Brian Gregory has ties to Michigan State and Matt Ishbia, but he also has a lot of experience as a head coach. He was the head coach at Dayton. He was the head coach at Georgia Tech. He was the head coach at South Florida. He will be the one voice. He will be the lead voice. So it's no longer going to be by committee where you've got 4 or 5 different people and a lot of cooks in the kitchen. Yeah. There's not a lot of cooks in the kitchen. There'll be one voice. It'll be Brian Gregory. What they liked about him was player development. He was instrumental in helping them with Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro, and they feel that there's still players on the roster that have to get better. He is going to really help with player development. That was the number one factor in bringing in a general manager, was player development. So my understanding is, again, about 5 candidates were considered. Gregory became the front runner about a week ago, and they ended up making the decision today, and he will be the general manager. James Jones will be moved to a advisor role.
John Gambadoro yesterday on 98.7 Burns and Gambo, kind of breaking down who Brian Gregory is. Hey, you know what? I understand this whole player
3
development
minutes.
thing, but I'm also looking at a guy. It's not about player development. It's about understanding what you have, what you don't have. You have a staff to develop your players. You have assistant coaches to develop players. Now, that head coach you go after will be the guy that's going to help develop players. Your role in reference to getting this team back on track is your scouting, your draft, your free agent, your guys below you to direct them in a way of what it's going to take. Now, I get all that. And I appreciate Gamble, laying that out there for everybody yesterday on their show. But I still, the 4 or 5 other candidates, I would love to know who those other 4 or 5 candidates were. Because if those guys have been down the road as a general manager or an assistant general manager, they win with successful NBA programs, then I would feel more comfortable that those are the major changes Matt Ishbia was talking about in reference to bringing somebody in that's an architect, knows how to build it, knows how to understand it. I get the whole player development thing. To me, I'm sorry. I'm just not buying this. For me, this is just it's a situation where there was just a reshuffling of the deck. And there's so many people talking about just shuffling the chairs on the Titanic. I wouldn't say the Sons of the Titanic. It's kind of a crude exaggeration, but it's kind of the same thing. Why not fresh eyes? Why not a fresh look? Why not a fresh approach? Now, I think the only reason why is because I think of Brian Gregory and keeping it James Jones is a Matt Ishbia security blanket for him to have guys close to him. Yeah, he can trust him, but it may not be the right security blanket he wants.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to have time off in the summer, but it's going to be a busy one for Gregory for sure. And these first moves are definitely going to set the tone for the next few years. I have a to-do list. These are all the things that Brian Gregory, who's never been a GM before, will have to do. Find a new head coach. Durant trade possibilities. Beal's contract. Devin Booker extension, who's eligible for a $150 million extension. Will the Phoenix lock him up long-term? Reshaping the roster. And on top of that, they do have the 29th and 52nd overall pick, which, to their point about what Gambo was talking about, him being a big voice of the draft, that's not a real concern for me. I'm sure he will be able to find guys, the 29th and the 52nd overall pick. My biggest concern outside of head coach is going to be the Durant trade possibilities. I do not want Durant to get traded and have the Suns be what Nico Harrison looked like in the Mavs-Luka trade. That, to me, Manuch, has got to be the biggest thing here. Now, there's possibilities of Durant maybe staying around. I don't know right now with the highest payroll on this team how you can have Durant, Beal, and Booker running back for a third year. It's a disaster. They've got to make moves. It's a big to-do list for a guy that's never been a GM.
Yeah, this is like taking the floaties off and throwing somebody in the deep end. Now you're gonna have to that knows how to basically tread water, but do they know where to go against the current? I'm sorry, that's a lot. That just the 5 things: reshaping,
Clear to
trades,
rep.
contracts, all the above. You know what, folks? I'm a huge Suns fan, as you all know. I hope he does well. I just don't like it. I want to have somebody that knows how to drive the car, that knows where the forks in the row are, knows how to handle the gas. I mean, I would rather have that than somebody that's a newbie as a general manager and not a player personnel developer from that standpoint. Well, coming up, who are the winners in last weekend's NFL draft? And could Tyler Shuck be the starting quarterback for the Saints on day 1? That's all next on Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B on ESPN 620 and 98.7 HD2 right here from Wright Toyota.
It's Friday, and the guys are live from Wright Toyota. Right on the corner, right on the price. Wright Toyota, located at 77th Street and Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard in Scottsdale. Now back to the guys on ESPN 620.
With the 40th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Tyler Shuck.
I gotta love that. Tyler Shuck, young man at Hamilton High School, who I've trained since the 8th grade. He is the second round pick, I should say, of the New Orleans Saints. And a lot of chatterjacks coming out of New Orleans. Derek Carr finally came clean on this past Monday. He spoke at a church that said he does have some shoulder issues. He'd like to get cleaned up. He was real specific about it, but he also said that, look, he expects to be back and at quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. He didn't say back at quarterback for the start of the season. Where therein lies, there's some other chatter that Tyler might be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. The other quarterbacks on the roster, Spencer Rattler. I believe Spencer was either 4th or 5th round last year. Young man out of Pinnacle High School. Finished his college career at South Carolina. Also a very good quarterback. And then there's Jack Hayner, who I believe was at Fresno State, as I recollect.
Jake Hayner.
Jake Hayner was at Fresno State. So Tyler Shough might be in the running as a starting quarterback for the Saints, not really knowing what exactly is a shoulder issue or a shoulder concern for Derek Carr.
Yeah, and I think it's a perfect fit. You know, this is Tyler Shough, a guy that you're familiar with, brings a lot of size, mobility, big arm, and an offense where Kellen Moore likes to go tempo, vertical shots, play action, big RPO game, kind of the similar things that he did with Dak Prescott and Tyler Shough's former teammate, and he was the backup to, and Justin Herbert. I think a lot of backlash and people having lazy takes saying that they should have picked Shedeur Sanders. I think it's BS. I think that's people that haven't seen a lot of Tyler Shough, because let's be honest, Louisville wasn't in the bright lights and the ESPN top games unless you looked at those top games where Notre Dame, Miami, Clemson on the road where they won. All Tyler's best games in the biggest moments. I think him being an older quarterback is not a knock on him. I think it's an advantage for him with a system for the Saints that they might lose Derek Carr. But guess what? You've got a guy with a lot of veteran experience that's played with 3 different systems, 5 or 6 different offensive coordinators, Manuch. So I think it's a perfect fit in an offense that Tyler Shough's familiar with. He's going to learn the playbook pretty quick. And I do think it's kind of a sneaky weapons, a supporting cast that you want to call it, that he's surrounded by in the wide receiver room and the running backs. And hopefully they can figure out Alvin Kamara, who's still dangerous in this league. Maybe he can kind of have a second coming, but a wide receiver group that's elite route runners, and them adding Brandon Cooks in free agency to come back to New Orleans will be that veteran in the room.
All right, Jax, as we were talking this morning, get ready for the show. I mean, everybody here in the Valley is so bought in on what the Cardinals did as far as their draft is concerned. So I asked you, okay, so what about everybody else we've never really heard of? By the way, we'll catch up with Doug Plank here at 3:30, get his thoughts on what he thought about the Cardinals draft, them being very defensive. But I wanted you to enlighten us. Who are pretty much the winners of the draft, the way you saw it? You're a college pundit. You're kind of a guy that's into this stuff. So aside from the Cardinals, I gave him like a B+, A-. Would like to see that home run wide receiver, Jax, but we didn't. So I gave him a B. I give him a B+ as far as that. But everybody else, how do you break it down?
Yeah, so I don't really say losers. I know a lot of people give out grades and losers and stuff. We have no idea. Let's wait 3 or 4 years until we can reevaluate these classes. But there are certain classes that I like, and I had 9 teams. I'm going to simplify it down. I'm going to mention some from the NFC first, and then go to the AFC in no particular order. I think one of the winners was the Carolina Panthers. They made a splash in the 2025 NFL draft, grabbing key playmakers, including Tedorola McMillan, who at some boards went high. But I think people got to realize that the Panthers at 8th overall is their only pick in this draft. It's not them being in the 8th slot. It's them saying, hey, we're not going to get this guy in the second round. They needed that dynamic wide receiver, a guy that can stretch the field and be a red zone threat in McMillan. And I think he actually fits good in this offense alongside Xavier Legette, who we met earlier. You've got Thielen and Renfro, 2 smart, slot, dependable, short yardage guys, and then a lot of speed, including Jimmy Horn Jr., the wide receiver they got out of Colorado. On top of that, Lathan Ransom, South Point Catholic, former safety, who was a safety at Ohio State in the 4th round, I think is a steal. I like Trevor Etienne, the running back out of Georgia. And they also got 2 edge rushers in Princely Yu and Nick Scorton, who were supposed to be first-round grades. They ended up getting in the second round for both of them. They're both 2 powerful, high-motor edge rushers. I just, overall, as a class, I like what the Panthers did.
And on top of that, Bryce Young's 3rd year, experienced, got the wets. Ransom, the young man from South Point Catholic,
dude's a hitter.
And who is the running back who's in Atlanta now? Robinson and him. Was it Robinson?
Yeah, Bijan Robinson.
Bijan Robinson. They were on the same team together. So Bijan's going to Texas, and he's going to Ohio State. We did a game, high school game broadcast out at Desert Edge. They came up from South Point Catholic. B.J. Robinson touched the ball 6 times. 5 of the 6 he scored. Ransom, being a safety, 6'2", 6'3", he was ball hawking all over the place. And Desert Edge had a really good quarterback who ended up going to K-State. But they both were men amongst boys. So nice to see Ransom going to the Carolina Panthers.
I know Cardinals fans aren't going to like this next team in the division, but they had a hell of a draft, the Seattle Seahawks. They had about 11 picks. They started with Gray Zabel, the offensive guard from North Dakota State, who can play the tackle position, but they more need him so at the offensive guard and the center position. They went back in the second round and got Nick Imanwari, a versatile safety who's so athletic, doesn't even have a comp at safety. His combine numbers were so elite. They compared him to DK Metcalf, the wide receiver, who also played at Seattle.
Wow.
Elijah Arroyo, the tight end out of Miami, they also got in the second round. Jalen Milroe. Now, this is a guy probably the most athletic, could be the fastest player on the field when he plays. I'm really interested to see what Mike McDonald will do with this guy. He's got an elite arm, deep threat, but the thing that he's worried about and they got to figure out is his short intermediate games or intermediate throws, as well as his decision-making at some points. You saw the Oklahoma game last year, but if you were to turn on the first half of Georgia, this guy could have definitely been a top 5 pick because that game, let alone, I mean, he looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
You know, he reminds me of, I think his comp is Richardson with the Colts. His size, his speed. The one thing about Milroe is he's a hell of a thrower.
4 minutes.
But I'm wondering when he becomes a good passer. So you get a combination of throwing and passing. But I liken him to Richardson with the Colts.
They also added Riley Mills, a defensive tackle from Notre Dame, and 2 wide receivers, Torrey Horton Jr. and as well as Ricky White the third. Now, a lot of guys don't know who these 2 guys are, drafted in the 5th and 7th round, but they're those Mountain West speedy wide receivers who also add depth. Those are 2 guys, in my opinion, I wanted the Cardinals to go and grab. They decided to go elsewhere, and they also added Damian Martinez, the running back out of Miami, who had a hell of a year at Miami and was a 2-year starter at Oregon State before. I think the Seahawks absolutely killed the draft there. And real quickly, just 2 other winners I want to mention on the AFC side. I thought the Patriots did well.
Yes.
I love teams that help their quarterback out, especially a young quarterback, getting an offensive tackle in Will Campbell. Then on top of that, giving Travion Henderson, the running back at Ohio State, who's a home run hitter in the backfield, and then getting Kyle Williams, wide receiver to Washington State, supplying your young quarterback in year 2 with more weapons. And on top of that, the second team I want to mention in the AFC, the Houston Texans. They got the 2 wide receivers at Iowa State, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. And on top of that, an underrated running back in Woody Marks out of USC and a physical safety in Jalen Reed, the safety out of Penn State. I like what they did in the draft as well. They also got the offensive tackle, Irusri, out of Minnesota. And then lastly, it's always every year. The Eagles and the Chiefs have really smart drafts. I thought this year was the same thing. They went out and they got a guy that me and Connor were actually talking about in Texas last weekend that we wanted the Cardinals to go and get in Jalen Royals, the wide receiver to Utah State, an explosive, deep downfield threat. He fits the mold of the Rashee Rices, the Xavier Worthies, like the Hollywood Browns. We know the prototype of what the Chiefs want to do at wide receiver. I think both those teams, them, and then for the Eagles, just get the best linebacker in the draft at 31. It's like, of course, like that makes sense to pair up with Andrew
2 minutes,
who
2
got in the
minutes.
second round, who's going to be a starting safety, and then Ty Robinson, Higley, local talent, the Nebraska defensive tackle. So a lot of teams there. Panthers, Seahawks, Eagles, Chiefs, Patriots, Texans. I could mention even more, but those are like 6 teams to me that I think killed in the draft.
Nice job, Jax. The one thing you talk about the Patriots, I felt they won the free agency market as well. I think Mike Vrabel's going in there. He's got the support of Robert Kraft to get this thing back on track when they had Tom Brady there. I think Drake May is still going to be an up-and-coming quarterback. But to your point, blocking for him, supporting him, giving him the receivers, giving him the tight end, building the defense. Mike Vrabel building that defense via free agency. And now you look at these draft choices. Don't look now, folks, Buffalo Bill fans, Miami Dolphin fans. Watch the Patriots make a big move pretty much from the outhouse to the penthouse in this
1 minute.
And I know I'm putting you on the spot, Connor, but I know you're a big NFL draft guy too. Any teams that either I mentioned or a team that stands out to you that you liked that won the NFL draft?
Yeah, I mean, I love what you said there about the Seattle Seahawks. For one, I think that's a team that a lot of people kind of started to sleep on a little bit. I know they don't want to hear as much here as there's a lot of in-division rivalries, but what you think about is they moved on from Sam Darnold and Geno Smith, and you're like, all right, well, what's going to end up being the future of this team in a few years? I think you set yourself matched up nicely with Jalen Milroe. Plus, it has a little bit of speed element, something that team hasn't had in a while. I know they've had DK Metcalf, but the rest of that team seems to have been built around the run game. So I'm excited to see the new look Seahawks. And then again, I think you guys were right on with the New England Patriots. They're a team that really has bought into Mike Vrabel coming in, and you could tell he has his fingerprints all over this draft class.
Coming up next, we catch up with sports handicapper Scott Spreitzer of DocSports.com. But first, you heard him right there. Connor has a right to the ESPN 620 update. This is Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B right here on 620 on FM and 98.7 HD2. Plus also on our showcase at Arizona Sports app. We're also live from Wright Toyota.
Scott Spreitzer, one of the leaders and most trusted names in the country. Nobody watches and studies games more than he does. From TalkSports.com, here's Scott Spreitzer, exclusively on with Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B on ESPN 620.
That's right. He's been breaking it down for many, many years on Roc and Manuch. Jimmy B right here on ESPN 620. Got to imagine, Scott, we'll be 21 years on September 6th. You've been there probably, 19 or 20 of the 21? We got you there, Scott?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. I was just talking about as you were coming up there, we've been doing this. It'll be 21 years on September 6th, I believe, coming up. You've been joining us, 18, 19, 20 of those years?
It's crazy, and we're only 30. I mean, it's
give and take. And we're still waiting for that Nebraska program to get back to
Hey, see, now there you go. You got to get personal.
Hey, you look at these NBA playoffs. You look at the Rockets and the Warriors. This is one of those matches that's coming down to the wire. Last time I looked, it looked like the Warriors are -5.5. -5.5 with the games we've seen. Is that the only reason why? Because it's at home in Golden State?
Yeah, that's pretty much a big reason why. It's been bouncing back and forth all day, 5.5. As soon as it gets to 5.5, it bounces back to 5 and back and forth. But, yeah, I mean, I'm watching the game the other night. Golden State, as you guys saw, waved the white flag early in Game 5. And it gave Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, the veterans plenty of rest. No one, by the way, in that game for Golden State played more than 25.5 minutes, so they're going to be fresh. There were a few Rocket players who reached 20-plus points in that game. Alperen Sengun has been the lone Rocket to bring it every night, though. I really like this guy. But, again, he's the one that brings it on a consistent basis. The officials, here's what I like about Golden State tonight. The officials, as we've seen, are swallowing their whistles. That means Draymond can be his antagonizing, annoying self, get in young guys' heads, and Houston's young and inexperienced, coming as far as playoff play is concerned. So I expect him to get inside these guys' heads, change their games a little bit. I think we're going to see a decent game out of Steph. He's got that ugly thumb injury, but, man, they were coming after his hand and thumb repeatedly in Game 5. I think there's going to be, not that you need extra motivation in a playoff series that you can wrap up, but I think there's going to be a little bit of extra, maybe skip in his step when it comes to Steph because of the way they were going after him. So I think there'll be that extra motivation if needed. And finally, the experience factor to me, guys, is huge. And the Warriors own that big advantage. So it's a little hefty there at 5, but I think the Warriors come through with the winning cover.
And the reason why I asked that, Scott, in reference, you just said it, it's a must-win situation for the Rockets if they want to try to take this to a Game 7. And I know it's at the Warriors, and Steph's a little fired up with them coming after his finger, but in a must-win situation, 5.5 seems like a lot. But how about the over/under at 207.5? Does that seem like a lot in a must-win for the Rockets?
It does. I mean, this line has gone up a little bit today. There's some 208s popping up out there. I kind of leaned over, but I'm not enough to play it. It was 203.5, yesterday at this time. So the fact that it's all the way up to 208 means if you did like the over, you've certainly lost a lot of value there. It's 4.5 to 5 points higher now. So at this point, I'm not going to play the total, but if I had to, I would play the under at 207.5, 208.
All right, second game, Scott, the Clippers at the Nuggets. We have Clippers -1.5 and kind of almost a pick 'em. Has it changed at all because the Nuggets are at home, or are they riding the hot hand with the Clippers? What's been going on the last couple games?
Yeah, Denver's basically a 1-point favorite almost everywhere now.
Wow.
And, obviously that has a lot to do with the home court, what this team has done in the past. I mean, what a great series, first of all. It's so evenly matched. And that's tough to get when facing Denver because of Jokic. But the Clips have Zubac, and he's been making Jokic work his rear end off at the other end when the Clippers have the basketball. But he's got home court. We've got a virtual pick the winner of the game, you cover the spread scenario. And NBA home teams, guys, check this out. NBA home teams are now 110-42 in Game 7s. So, yeah, I mean, it makes home court so vital when it comes to a Game 7. So this really does come down to Jokic stepping up. He's been better than most the last two games, but not Jokic great. Zubac, as we said, has made him work hard when the Clippers have the rock. And I think it's affected Jokic a bit on the offensive end. But you've got Murray playing next-level basketball. And then I expect Jokic to step up in this big of a game and play the level he's grown used to. So I do think Denver's going to win this game. And again, it's a situation where no matter who you like, you win the game, you cover the spread for the most part. And the worst you do is push if you've got Denver and they win by 1. So I'm going to back Denver here. Kawhi could turn this around in a heartbeat. There's been a game or two where Kawhi hasn't played at that elite level, but for the most part he has. And then there's been a couple of games where playoff James Harden shows up. That's not a good thing. So we'll see if he can show up and play well. But it's tough for me to go against a team at home in Game 7 when they're 110-42.
I was going to say 110 and 42.
And 42, yeah.
Home games, Game 7.
Yep.
I would say it's a sure bet. I'd just say it's a pretty damn good bet. I'll just leave it at that. The other thing, too, Scott, you mentioned, the superstars, and Jax talked about this a little bit earlier. The superstars in this game. I mean, you look at it any particular time. We talk about, you said the Murrays and the Joker, and then there's Westbrook, and then the other side you got Kawhi, you got James Harden. This is a star-studded event that, to your point, anybody can take that last shot and make it.
Oh, exactly. And Westbrook's played really well. You can't really knock Westbrook at all in this playoff series. And you're right. I mean, you literally have 6 guys, 3 on each team that could end this game or come out and have a 40-point night, and be the difference maker in this game. It's a fantastic series to watch. I know there was a blowout in there, but I think it's been a fantastic series to watch because it's so evenly matched. And it's almost going, in Phoenix, but in Las Vegas, outside these two teams have been flying under the radar. And I wouldn't want to mess with either one of these teams in the next round.
I believe, and speaking of the next round, the semis, I believe it's Monday. The Pacers are going to be at the Cavaliers. Last time I looked, Cavaliers -7.5. Is that still standing right now?
Yeah, a lot of 8s now out there. The Cavaliers, the total just under 230, like 229.5. And they're within a half a point or two as far as what that total's been for the last few hours. As far as the series price, the Cavaliers are -525. And the comeback on the Pacers is +410. So what that basically means to folks who've kind of gotten new to sports betting, if you want to win $100 with the Cavaliers, you got to bet about $525 in this series to win 100. So they're a pretty big favorite. I don't think Indiana could have asked for a better first-round opponent than Milwaukee. Lillard was banged up start to finish, finished the series 6 of 27, including 3 of 16 from behind the arc, and missed the final game and most of the previous game after tearing his Achilles tendon. I like Halliburton. I like Siakam. There's no doubt about it. But Nembhard, Turner, McConnell, Nesmith, those guys all benefited from the matchups they drew against a Bucks team that was shorthanded, and I thought, again, somewhat poorly coached. Cleveland's loaded. Donovan Mitchell, 28 points per game. Here's another interesting fact that I found out yesterday. Only one player other than Michael Jordan has reached at least 30 points in 7 straight series openers. Michael Jordan, right? Donovan Mitchell is the other one. And he's just, so phenomenal for Cleveland and so consistent. They own the second best defense.
3 minutes.
They were top 10 all year. Indiana was barely above middle of the pack on the defensive end this season. You look at Cleveland, you got the defensive player of the year in Evan Mobley. The pacer role players, unlike a couple of Cleveland's, aren't good at creating their own looks at the basket. And I don't know if I mentioned this on the show before the postseason began, guys, but 13 of the last 15 NBA champions finished the regular season in the top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. There's 4 teams left who fit: Oklahoma City, Boston, Minnesota, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I do believe they're the side in this series, and Cleveland will be able to take it to Indiana, probably win this in 5 games, maybe 6 tops.
All right, Scott, that all sounds good. Let's talk about the biggest event, maybe of the weekend, the Kentucky Derby. Do you partake in this, and who are some of the favorites that people should be able to look out for the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, I do, guys. I mean, my family got into sports betting through horse racing. I had a family member, an uncle, who was a world-class jockey. He won Jockey of the Year at Del Mar back in the 60s. He's since passed on, but his name's Bobby Mundorf, Robert Mundorf. But anyway, that's how we all got into sports betting. So I've been a horse fan forever. The weather situation is throwing a wrench into everything, guys. I was about to come on your show here and say, if we would have talked yesterday, I like sovereignty to journalism to Luxor Cafe as far as a trifecta box, and Luxor Cafe being that horse that would give us a nice payoff going, as a morning line is about 15-1. So those 3 horses, And then all of a sudden we get the scratch of Rodriguez, which means Baeza is able to race in this Derby. Very impressive horse at the Santa Anita, despite a slow out of the gate start, and ran wide early. He won't run wide early in this particular race. He's got Flavion Pratt, who's finished in the Superfecta 6 times. So I think Baeza is going to be in the mix at the end of this race, but it's a sloppy track, and that's what they're expecting. I was looking at AccuWeather, and it's supposed to be raining all day at the Derby, maybe let up for this race itself. But again, that track could be nasty. And I'll give you one horse that's sitting as as far as the line was concerned,
Clear to toss.
30-1, and that's in the 16-post Cole Battle. Very versatile, has shown he can be a factor no matter the style of race. He beat Sandman in the Rebel, and I don't like his buyer speed figures, but if it's a muddy, sloppy track, all of a sudden he becomes very tempting in exotics. So watch out for Cole Battle. Again, right now, 30-1, the morning line, if this is a sloppy track on Saturday. But I'll stick with Sovereignty, Journalism, and I'm going to probably have to throw Luxor Cafe and Baeza in that mix and make a trifecta box out of those horses.
And just real quick, Scott, we got about a minute here. When they have a scratch, I believe Grande was scratched as well too. Mike Rapoli was the owner. Smith, because the horse was doing just fine. When they scratch like that, do the odds have to be realigned? Did they make them early enough? And now once you scratch, or they just kind of look at what's left, the 19 that are left?
Yeah, look at the 19 that are left. I mean, as far as Grande, because it's all coming in, through how the bets are made after they set those numbers, and the numbers change according to the amount of bets that are made on each horse. But again, if Grande was maybe in that 5-1 to 10-1 range, that might be a little bit different. But Grande was 20-1 morning line, and so I don't think it'll affect it that much. I'm kind of disappointed. There are no matchup prices yet because the books are waiting to see what the weather's going to be like. But I had planned on looking to use Grande in matchups when they were posted, and now, of course, I can't do that.
Scott, always appreciate your time. We'll talk to you next Friday.
Take care, guys. Good luck.
Scott Spreitzer. He's at DocSports.com. You can also tweet him at Scott Wins. Well, coming up next, it's our random fact of the day, and then football at 50. Roc and Manuch, Jimmy B, now on ESPN 620 and on FM at 98.7 HD2. Plus, we are always streaming if you missed our show. Our podcasts are up at ArizonaSports.com. That's ArizonaSports.com. We got much more with Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B from Wright Toyota.
Friday, and the guys are live from Wright Toyota. Right on the corner, right on the price. Wright Toyota, located at 77th Street and Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard in Scottsdale. Now back to the guys on ESPN 620.
All right, the first random fact of the day. And I'll get your response to this guy. Got Connor Collins back there at the studio. Jackson Groff here. We're at Wright Toyota. The exclamation point didn't become a standard key on the keyboard until 1970. We had typewriters back in those days. Beyond that, you had to type a period and then use the backspace to go back and stick an apostrophe above it. Now, here's my question, gentlemen. When somebody says, hey, how you doing? Or yo, or where are you at? And goes exclamation, okay. But if they do more than one exclamation, is that almost like yelling at you as if they're texting you or emailing you in bold caps? Is it kind of the same thing?
Yeah, I'd agree.
I mean, what about you, Connor? If I say, hey, yo, Connor, and I'm exclamation, you just kind of get your attention. But if I'm doing it 3 or 4 or 5 times, is that like me like yelling at you or something like that?
Yeah, I think you can always kind of get a feel of the sense of tone. I think adding the extra exclamation points definitely helps set the tone of where you're trying to go with it.
The urgency.
What if you had, yo, Connor, in all caps, and like 5 exclamations after that?
I will say this. My fiance hates at home when I do this because I'm kind of typical. I'll be like, babe, and then I'll put like 4 exclamation marks and she'll think something super serious is going on. I'm like, I just remember what I was trying to remember telling you this morning. And she'll get so mad at me.
You know, and I never knew that yelling in all caps as you're texting or the exclamations could be such a detriment or could be a different meaning. Now, if I was to say, hey, yo, Jax, with just 1 exclamation, be like, hey, Jax, how you doing? What's up? You see what I'm saying? But if you had 2 or 3 of those bad boys, don't you get the feeling, oh, my gosh, what did I do? I mean,
100%.
I mean, where are we at here? All right, let's give us a little Football 50 early music there, Connor, because we got to make you dive into there, Jax.
Yeah, kind of a cool feel-good story. So on Sunday, wide receiver Hunter Renfrow signed a 1-year deal to the Carolina Panthers, and not a lot of people knew about what happened with him because he had 2 tough years with the Raiders after he signed a 2-year, $32 million deal, was cut, and he was just gone from football for an entire year. Well, now it's come out that he actually was dealing with ulcerative colitis, which is a disease that deals with your inflammatory bowels. And it talks in an article how he actually lost 35 pounds and he had 7 straight days of 107-degree fever.
Wow.
So he had that going on, and he talks about, quote, I've been feeling bad for all these years, and I felt like I let my teammates down so much. He said he battled through it and didn't know exactly what it was until he got it checked out. And he talks about how it causes inflammation and ulcers in the lining of your large intestine. He even explained how he went from 185 to 150, and that for 3 years he was unable to eat. Now he's got it taken care of, and he said that he's back to even like before in his playing days back in 2016, where he had the game-winning touchdown with 1 second left to lead Clemson to win the national championship against Alabama. So for all those years of people wondering why Hunter Renfrow wasn't playing like he used to be, he was dealing with a disease that he's now taken care of. He said he's back healthy, eating more than he's ever had before. He's went around 200 pounds, and this could be a cool feel-good story for someone that's 29 years old. He was a walk-on at Clemson, that speedy wide receiver to add to the Carolina Panthers. I'm excited to see what he can do because some things you just don't know what people are going through, and Hunter Renfrow is one of those guys that's kind of more reserved, and he's just a hard worker and doesn't want to make excuses. And for him to battle through that for the disappointing 22 and 23 seasons, you know why he was battling through it and maybe was struggling because of that disease.
Didn't Hunter Renfrow have the winning touchdown catch from Deshaun Watson in the national title game?
That's what I said, yeah.
And I think that the other thing, when you think of that, and the other thing I think of Hunter Renfrow was when they had the Hard Knocks with the Oakland Raiders. And you had Mike Mayock, general manager, John Gruden was head coach, and Gruden loved Hunter Renfrow. And Hunter Renfrow might have been in his first or second year, but you went, wow. And then last couple of years, to that point of this story, we now know, it almost sounds like he was on the verge or have Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that he's got that under control because I've got a really good friend that had Crohn's disease. My niece has got Crohn's disease. She's got that under control. But it really throws you for a loop. My one good friend, she was a pro beach volleyball player. She's one of the best in the nation. She got hit with the same thing, and she lost a bunch of weight, had to give up the sport, had to put her on steroids. And some, I'm going to say 20 years later, she's got her under control. But nice to see Hunter Renfrow, getting that opportunity to come back because he was outstanding receiver, got great hands, got sneaky quick speed as well, too. So getting another shot to get back to national football.
Yeah, you remember back in 2021 where he made the Pro Bowl at a career high of 103 catches, 1,038 yards, 9 touchdowns. And, man, I mean, this dude, if you want to get him in the slot for the Carolina Panthers, and let's say the big body receivers and Leggett and McMillan can't get open on the outside, this guy runs the quickest out route or in-between inside slant route that you'll ever see. You talk about that quick, not the fastest downfield, but if it's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, you got him alongside Adam Thielen. I think it's a great acquisition, and kudos to the Panthers for probably working him out. Hunter Renfrow interviewing and talking about what he's been dealing with and having doctors look over him and stuff. I think it's a cool feel-good story, and hopefully he makes a good comeback.
That was John Gruden's head coach. Was it Derek Carr was his quarterback?
Yeah, they had Antonio Brown on that team.
Yeah, and oh God, how about
crazy Hard Knocks?
You guys remember the hot air balloon coming in on Hard Knocks? How could you forget that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was just so nuts with the Antonio Brown with his feet being all torn up, and then Hunter Renfrow, and then who was the tight end that
Darren Waller?
Yeah, Darren Waller. I mean, what a team! But just goes to show you with that West Coast offense, where John Gruden was excited, and when Derek Carr had protection. Those teams, they went to the playoff the one year with Derek Carr being all banged up, and Renfrow and that group of receivers you talked about were the guys. But Brown
4 minutes
never came to fruition. Matter of fact, didn't that cut him eventually?
Yeah, they
at the end of that training camp.
Yeah, I think they cut him. But talking about the Panthers, though, in a down division in the NFC South, so you look at the Panthers and what they did in the offseason. Bryce Young at the back end started to get more confidence. The additions they made in the draft and free agency and a weak division. The Falcons are kind of a mess right now. The Buccaneers will always be solid because of Baker Mayfield, and offensively they got better, and they've got some key guys defensively with Vita Vea and all the crew they have there. The Panthers could be a sneaky team in the NFC to maybe make some noise, and I'm looking forward to seeing Bryce Young. I think he's starting to click things, and he's building more confidence. You're starting to see why he was a top pick in 2020.
And who was the guy that's going to be at the Derby for the Panthers?
Xavier Leggett.
Leggett. I mean, think of him. If Renfrow can be completely healthy, to your point, that slot guy, that brings a lot of experience and knowledge for a young quarterback at Bryce Young. And, having a Wes Welker type guy like Renfrow helps it immensely. But by the way, there's several games last year, Jax. Carolina could have won. They lost like the last minute. They're very competitive.
They beat the Cardinals last year.
It's right, exactly right. I think Andy Dalton came in for Bryce Young after a very slow start. He got hurt. Bryce Young got his act together, and the Carolina Panthers, I felt, made a move moving forward with Canales as their head coach.
Another move that was made, the Bills at depth at wide receiver, signing Elijah Moore to a 1-year, $5 million deal. I think it's a solid contract. I mean, this is a guy that was, I believe, a second-round pick to the Jets, then made his way to the Browns. Was supposed to be like a number 2 wide receiver. Couldn't really figure things out there. He had some good years, had some bad. Jerry Jeudy kind of took over there. I mean, it's another slot receiver. Like, they know their mold of slot guys with Curtis Samuel and Elijah Moore and, I'm blanking his name, Khalil Shakir, who also got that big contract as well. But it's so funny, after Brandon Beane was talking about earlier this week on the radio show, I don't know if you saw that, blasting the reporters, saying how you guys trashed me for wanting Josh Rosen over Josh Allen back in 2018. Now you're trashing me that we didn't get a wide receiver. We obviously got better at wide receiver from a year ago. And he goes out and adds another wide receiver this week in Elijah Moore.
Why does the general manager get so involved and pay attention to the noise? I'll never
minute and a half.
Pro, as a quarterback, we're playing, look, ignore the noise. You're never as good as they say, and you're never as bad as they say. Somewhere in the middle lies the truth. I think those are some of the things that you look at as a pro. Real quick, ASU got an outstanding commit yesterday as well, too, did they not?
Yeah, they had top-rated junior college pass rusher Joshua Schlenklin from the best JUCO in all of California, Foothill College in Los Altos, California. I poke fun at Connor back there to play JUCO ball, but he was the number 1 rated JUCO pass rusher and a top 5 recruit. Another great get for Arizona State. I'm excited to see if he transitions well and starts immediately for Sunday.
Oh, good stuff right there. All right, Football 50 is brought to you by Arena Sports Grill. If you are looking for a place to watch the bet, the Derby, let's go to Arena Sports Grill. to have a great on-track betting, and the place will be packed. The Arena Sports Grill on 62nd Street and Bell Road. That's 62nd Street and Bell Road. And basically, go on in there. It'll be packed. Get yourself all set to go. Coming up in hour number 3, we catch up with Arizona Republic sports columnist Greg Moore to get his thoughts on the Suns hiring of Brian Gregory as the new GM. That's all next on Roc and Manuch, Jimmy B on ESPN 640, 98 some HD2 as we are live from Wright Toyota.
It's Friday, and the guys are live from Wright Toyota. Right on the corner, right on the price. Wright Toyota, located at 77th Street and Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard in Scottsdale. Now back to the guys on ESPN 620.
Welcome back to hour number 3 of Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B. I'm Dan Manuch alongside Jackson Groff right here at Wright Toyota. Well, the Suns hire Brian Gregory as a new general manager. Who? What? Whatever happened to major changes versus major reorganizations, Matt Ishbia? Well, here to calm me down and maybe explain it all and try to make us all understand is Greg Moore, Arizona Republic sports columnist, as he joined us on the Wright Toyota guest line. Greg, it's Manuch alongside Jax. What? I just wanted to get you on to say, I thought we were going in a completely different direction when I hear the term major changes. How did you view this, and what exactly is being caught in reference to Matt Ishbia?
Yeah. I mean, listen, first of all, hey, fellas, how's it going? Second of all, I totally understand. You're confused, if you're wondering what in the world's going on. The best way I can think of it is like this. Matt Ishbia comes in. He's been a very successful guy in his life, and he probably wants to put his own team in place. But he looks around, he says, look, I've got this team in the middle of a season. I don't want to make these changes right this second. That would be silly. So he gives it a couple of years. It doesn't work out the way he hopes it will work out. And so he still wants to try to put his stamp on it. So now he's talking about what type of identity he wants the team to have. And then he needs to get his own front office in place. Josh Bartelstein clearly wasn't the guy. It didn't work out. So he's been moved out. James Jones was part of the previous ownership. And for whatever it's worth, they're going to keep him around as an advisor. If it was me, I would have kept the guy in charge of basketball decisions. But hey, I'm not a billionaire. I didn't buy a team. If I have $1 billion, I buy a team for $4 billion, whatever it is, I'm probably going to hire my guys. And it seems like the new guy used to play ball or used to be part of the Spartans team where Ishbia won a national championship 20 some odd years ago. I guess he was an assistant coach back then. I guess he was with the Indiana Pacers for a while. Like, I don't know. Let's give this a chance. This doesn't seem like a horrible decision. It's not what I would have done, but I have enough money to buy a basketball team.
Well, I get all that. And you got to remember, Greg, I've been there since day one, 1968, sixth grade. Little Danny Manucci over at St. Daniel's there off of Hayden. And watching this, and I'm like, well, you know what? I think what you reiterated, where I think you kind of went, is that this is a security blanket for Matt Ishbia to bring in a guy he knows, he's familiar with. He's going to go down the road with one of his guys versus maybe somebody that's been there and done that. Maybe a Bob Myers, who I understand was interested, or David Griffin, been there, done that. Architects that know how to build, know how to go down that road versus a guy that you're just taking his floaties off and throwing him in the deep end.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense too. You know, I need to go back and really look with the Bob Myers. Pretty sure when Bob Myers took over, Steph was already in place. Clay was already in place. I want to say Draymond was already in place. Now, I'm pretty sure Bob Myers is responsible for the Steve Kerr hire. I want to say Jerry West was involved and was like a advisor during all that time. And really, I would honestly need to really do my homework. Myers is a fantastic general manager, and let's not say that any way that's let's just say that very clearly, very directly. Myers is terrific, right? David Griffin has been terrific. He acquired a team, or he put together a team down in New Orleans that, hey, is too many injuries, right? They just were undone by injuries. But when you look at the moves he made, they were all the right moves. He put together a Pelicans team a couple of years ago that stretched out the Phoenix Suns in the first round of the playoffs when the Suns had something like 64 wins, a franchise record in wins. This seems like there were good candidates. I still think that James Jones was as strong as any candidate out there. But if you're looking to put together a team, if you're looking to create an identity, why wouldn't you go with a guy who knows exactly what you're trying to create? If you guys remember, a few weeks ago, I was on the show and I was making a joke that if I'm Ishbia, I hire Tom Izzo, the longtime coach at Michigan State. It's funny, right? Because Tom Izzo's never going to leave Michigan State. He's one of the old guard guys. He's a Dean Smith. He's a Bobby Knight. He's a guy he's a John Wooden. He's a guy who's going to be at that school until he chooses not to be there anymore. And they're going to name a building after him, a street after him. If they haven't already done so, he could probably run for governor. He'd be fine. But if the new general manager was an assistant coach on that staff when Ishbia was on that team, if Ishbia is looking to create an identity, it makes a lot of sense that he would go get a guy who knows what that identity is.
Greg Moore, Arizona Republic, joins us here on the Right Toyota guest line. So GM is assigned and hired, check. Who are you anticipating as most likely candidates to fill the head coaching search? And are those people that come in want a kind of contract to secure that they'll be there for more than 1 year? Like, I think that type of, for a head coach to come into an organization that's had 4 straight head coaches. Would you think that a lot of these candidates don't feel that secure heading into the organization? What have you heard about the coaching search just in general?
Yeah, no, that's great. So I think the coaching search had to wait until you got the front office together, and now you can really start to hone it in. I've heard the same names everybody else has heard. Steve Nash, which was cute, but he wasn't that great of a coach with the Brooklyn Nets. I thought that Steve Nash was just somebody who would be kind of fun to think about, but he wasn't the most accomplished coach I'd ever seen. Jeff Van Gundy. Now listen, as a guy who covers the team for a living, Van Gundy would be awesome because he's a quote machine. You just stick a microphone in front of his face and he does the rest, and people are going to read it because it's interesting, it's funny. Plus, the guy absolutely knows basketball. I'm not averse to Jeff Van Gundy. If you talk about Jeff Van Gundy, though, why wouldn't you talk about Mark Jackson? Because last time that I checked, the Golden State Warriors were just kind of so-so, and then he turned Steph Curry and Klay Thompson into the Splash Brothers. He is the guy who unleashed Draymond Green. He got fired. Steve Kerr takes over, and the Warriors become a dynasty. But Mark Jackson knows what he's doing. Okay, so maybe you don't like those guys. Maybe you want a young guy. What I would do is I would get somebody who's so hungry that failure's not an option, because this is their first shot, and you never know in big-time sports, your first shot might be your last shot. I want a guy who knows exactly how he wants it to go because he's imagined it, he's thought about it, he's waited for it, he's been passed over, he's been missed, he's been forgotten, he's been
3 minutes
to go, and when he gets his shot, it takes off. Now, when you think about what Monty Williams had been through in his basketball career and his personal life, when he finally stepped back into coaching with the Phoenix Suns, he had so much experience in front offices, in assistant coaching roles, and head coaching roles. He'd had some time to reestablish his priorities, get his life together after the death of his first wife, get remarried. Monty Williams was ready to go. Failure was not going to be an option because he was not going to put up with any crap. And if you can find a candidate who clicks those boxes, and again, I don't know who they are, man. Guys, I love the NBA. I love basketball, but I am not about to sit here and tell you I know who every assistant coaching candidate who's ready to be a head coach is. I just don't know. But I'm looking for a guy who's hungrier than anything and is ready to make it go.
And I think that those are some of the things I think fans want to hear. That's kind of the next shoe to drop. As Greg Moore, Arizona Public Sports Comments, joins us here on the right Toyota guest line. You can tweet him at Saying More. All right, so here we are. We got the new general manager. They've had a reorganization versus major changes. Looking at a new head coach. There's also potential trades to happen. There is an absolute plethora of things for Brian Gregory to have to deal with starting basically yesterday. From the standpoint, is the priority until the playoffs are off a new coach, or is it getting our ducks in line for trades? And how much trade contact can they have, Greg, in reference to the playoffs going on, or does everything have to stop during that time frame?
Yeah, no, listen, so nothing stops, right? This is the NBA. Nothing stops. And I'm always reminded of that Chris Paul trade that got nixed by the league, where Chris Paul was going to go to the Lakers. And it's because they had negotiated too much during what was supposed to have been a dead period. Nothing stops in the NBA. I'm also reminded of the Arizona Cardinals and the whole burner phone situation. Like, nothing stops. So you're always taking calls. You're always making calls. And if you think Brian Gregory is just now starting to think about this now that he's been named, you know, that's probably not the case. He's probably been thinking about this for weeks and months, right? In my mind, if I'm doing this, I go front office, head.
About a minute or so left, 1 minute.
Because then the head coach and the front office can get aligned in what type of team they want. Once you figure out what type of team you want, then you can figure out what type of players fit that mold, and then you can go get them. I think if you start talking too much in terms of trades and getting this guy and that guy, and then you get a head coach and doesn't want to run that system, I mean, that's what we saw happen, frankly, with Frank Vogel. Vogel was a guy who I thought was going to work wonders with DeAndre Ayton because we've seen Vogel turn otherwise average centers into defensive stalwarts in Indiana, and he had a bunch of good centers that he turned into, guys that we thought were washed with the Lakers that he actually got a lot out of and won a championship with the Lakers. So you get Frank Vogel, you keep DeAndre Ayton, but when you get Frank Vogel, then you trade DeAndre Ayton, now all of a sudden you gave a coach a set of personnel that doesn't really work with what he does best. Same thing with Mike Budenholzer. This guy wants to run a system where he's jacking up a bunch of threes, and he's got three of the best mid-range players of their generation, if not all time. It just wasn't the right mix. So in my mind, general manager first, head coach second, personnel third.
Greg Moore is a Republic Sports columnist, also azcentralsports.com. You can go to @sayingmore. Speaking of saying more, give us a tease here about the next 30 seconds, what you got coming up as far as columns, and it's got to be Suns and maybe Cardinals. Where are you headed the next few columns?
Dude,
Clear to rep.
Kidding me? Suns, Diamondbacks, Cardinals will be probably later toward the end of the month. One of the things I try to do, man, is I try to figure out what is the biggest question on the mind of the most fans, and I try to say what I can to bring them something they wouldn't otherwise know so that they can be smarter about their favorite thing.
Well, we appreciate you making us smarter about Brian Gregory. We appreciate that. Greg, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no doubt. He's also got an awesome name, man. The Gregories are just generally successful, handsome, really smart, funny, like the guys, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, very talented on top of it. Thank you, Gregory Moore. We certainly appreciate that.
No doubt. Look, thanks for having me on, as always, and I'll talk to y'all soon.
That's it. There he is, @saying more, Greg Moore. Well, coming up, it's our replay rewind, the sounds of yesterday's MLB and NBA playoffs. That's all next on Roc and Manuch, Jimmy B on ESPN 620.
Now it's time for our replay rewind. The top sounds of the night and whatever Rock decides to add. Let's get to it in replay rewind with Roc and Manuch with Jimmy B on ESPN 620 and on FM at 98.7 HD2.
Bridges to toss it in to Brunson. Defended by Thompson. 15 seconds left. Brunson takes a peek at the clock. Thompson digging in defensively. 8 seconds. Brunson stops on a dime. Launches. Oh, yeah! Jalen Brunson buries it. Knicks lead by 3. The Brunson burner ignited. Cunningham to toss it in. Movement. Beasley, Harris falls down. Hardaway, back for Cunningham. Swing it. Off the hands of Beasley. Out of bounds. Pistons turn it over. 0.4 on the clock. Detroit didn't get a shot off. The Knicks take care of business. They wrap up the series in Detroit and move on to the second round. Jalen Brunson. He's the hero. 116 to 113 the final.
Thank you to TNT for the final minute. It would seem like an eternity for those Piston fans. Jalen Brunson's clutch 3 in the final seconds to win that series in the fourth quarter. 116 to 113. The Knicks win this series 4-2. They will now move on and take on the Boston Celtics. Today's Replay Rewind brought to you by Lerner and Rowe. Interact, need a check. Make one call, that's all, 602-977-1900. And always at learnandrow.com. They can help. Get a free consultation. Again, one call, that's all, 602-977-1900. How about Brunson? Clutch time, dribbling down to about, 4 or 5 seconds. And then that final possession by the Pistons for Beasley to just fumble it, go off his hands, go out of bounds, and not even get a shot off in that last second.
Yeah, it's been a wild series. Honestly, these first-round series, I'm not a huge NBA guy, but the NBA playoffs, the physicality and letting these players play, I was shocked to even say Jalen Brunson played 42 minutes in this game. The last 2 games, he's been hobbling. You can tell the Pistons are kind of playing that bad boy basketball, bruising him up a little bit. But when you need a shot most, 40 points. Jalen Brunson again continues to show why he's one of the best players in the NBA. And this was a game to me, Manuch. I thought the Pistons were going to win. Just again, like them playing at home, the Knicks haven't been able to get one at home against the Pistons unless it was that no call they had the other night a couple weeks ago for this Pistons game against the Knicks. But yeah, shout out to the Knicks, man. They've got 4 guys that played 40 plus minutes. And they got the job done against a Pistons team that was not supposed to be in the playoffs. Future's bright, but man, you got a Knicks Celtics series. It brings you back to those old days, huh?
Yeah, it really does. You just wonder if the Knicks have got enough firepower to take on that Celtics team. And again, the Knicks, pretty much this Pistons team made a nice comeback, gallant comeback there in that fourth quarter, outscoring the Knicks 28-20. But again, Jalen Brunson, Mr. Clutch. The final seconds of that game to make all that happen in reference to that. Then the other game, that's right, that it's going to be the Clippers are forcing a Game 7, and it was just interesting to see how much the James Hardens of the world, the Kawhi Leonards of the world played in reference to getting this game to Game 7 as they'll head back to Denver. Here's James Harden talking about forcing that Game 7.
Being aggressive. The winner go home. So a lot of opportunities to be aggressive, and I took them. We did a good job game planning. See what we needed to make corrections on and did it. So one more game. It's like winner go home. So we didn't want to go home. We got one more game left in a couple of days. Figure out what we got to do better. Still a lot of mental mistakes. A lot of execution that we can get better at. And then go out there and take it.
Yeah, this is one of those series where it may go down to the final wire. And when I watch Harden and I watch his team, going at it, and on the other side, he's got his old teammates. He's got Westbrook on the other side, that they're going back and forth. And you look at Murray and Westbrook and the Joker, and then you look at Kawhi Leonard and James Harden and that group. This might be one of the more evenly matched quarterfinals, Jacks, that we could ever imagine. And you know what? They're going to have to play a lot of minutes. I mean, that's just going to be the crux of it, because it's win or go home into Game 7. As a matter of fact, James Harden talks about playing another 47 to 48 minutes.
Yeah, have to. Like, it is what it is. You know, I miss a part of it. So, you know, whatever the team needs, 47, 48, overtime, whatever, you know, I'm willing to do it.
And James Harden always seems to be that guy. He always seems so smooth, does he not? When he's out there running the point or the two guard, creating his own shots. But it seems as though you've seen a more balanced James Harden, you know, dishing the ball off. He's not taking those wild shots that I think a lot of people thought he might. But you're seeing that balance. You're seeing him take control of the ball. And one of those things that you kind of think about when you watch James Harden is, you know, as I talked about, the assists and the way that he makes things going. A couple of those things are, you know, he had 8 assists in last night's game. Daniel had a double-double, 28 points, 8 assists. As far as getting that ball out and spreading the basketball, Powell, Harden, Zubac, and Leonard all with double figures. That's the kind of balance I think that this Clippers team is looking forward to going into Game 7.
Yeah, both teams are similar. Both teams don't have a lot of bench play, and I think that's where the Nuggets in Game 7, if you want to have an edge, Jokic has got to play better. Even though he scored 25 points yesterday, I thought Zubac bodied him down low in the blocks, kind of made him not a factor in the second half there. And then for the Clippers, it's going to come down to Kawhi and Harden, and the X factor for them, too, has also been Powell, especially late. Hit that late three when the Nuggets were down 6. It looked like, you know, if they had to stop, they'd be able to crunch that deficit down. He makes a huge three to extend it to 9 points. It's a superstar game. Both teams not deep, and both teams are going to have to play 40, 45 plus minutes. And same with Murray too. He 21 points yesterday. Again, some of these superstars, if it was anyone else, 21 points would be a good game, but you expect those guys to have 25, 30 points, especially when guys like Porter and Gordon aren't producing like they usually do.
You know, and the guy that we, I don't want to say we dog, we just speculate with Kawhi Leonard. Here's a guy that doesn't play much during the season. He's missed the playoffs, you know, a couple of years ago, or a couple times he's missed the playoffs. But he's looking to savor every moment. Here's Kawhi Leonard talking about, you know, not taking the playoffs for granted anymore.
I'm enjoying every game. Like I said before, you know, I've been on the sidelines last couple of years in the playoffs, so I don't take it for granted. And I just try to cherish every moment, and thank God that I'm able to play.
Thank you to NBA TV for those last two clips of James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. And I agree, you know, it's like, you know, he's been injured, he's been hurt. He looks fresh. He looks good. So I don't know, Jax, with the last second shot, maybe Denver pulls it up, maybe the Clippers pull it up. But to your point, the superstars playing in this kind of a game is what makes it exciting for a lot of people to want to watch this game.
Yeah, I think for the Clippers, they're going to have to hope for a game. I think it was Game 3 or Game 4, I believe, where the Clippers went on the road and won at the Nuggets. And in that game, Kawhi Leonard had almost 25, 28 points in that game. Just they could not stop him. I think he shot 90%, like 9 of 10 from the field, dominant from the three-point line. He's going to have that takeover game to kind of silence the crowd early. It's a toss-up for me. I'm curious what Scott Spreitzer has to say later from a betting perspective, because obviously at 2:30 when he comes on, I lean Nuggets just based at home, the altitude. I think those are the type of games that Jokic will take over.
Oh, Jax.
I'm just happy. Nothing's better than sports this time of year than Game 6.
I think last time I checked, the spread's 1.5 Clippers. If I'm not mistaken, you can check me on that. Yesterday, the D-backs win 4-2. They win 2 out of 3. They win the series from the New York Mets. And a guy that's really starting to heat up is Perdomo. Here's Perdomo's solo home run in the top of the 5th.
Swung on, drilled, deep right field. Back it goes. Soto is out of room, gone. 5th of the year for Geraldo Perdomo. And the D-backs get that run right back. It's now 3-1.
Top of the 7th, excuse me. Thank you to the Diamondbacks Radio Network, Arizona Sports 98.7. And then a young man that's got 5 home runs so far. It looks like he'll be out of lineup tonight because Ketel Marte's, we understand, is back for tonight's game. Looks like he's going to be going to second base. Tewa, who's doing an outstanding job, a yeoman's job, he gets his 5th home run. This is in the top of the 9th for a little insurance run for the D-backs.
And Tawa swings, hits a high fly ball towards left. Nimmo going back onto the warning track and now feeling for the wall. That ball is gone. Home run for Tawa, his 5th. And the D-backs claw one back to start the 9th inning. It is now 4-2.
And last but not least, Ginkel's back in the fold. Boy, did he come in and do an outstanding job. Here's the Ginkel strikeout in the top of the 8th that really saved a big rally against the Mets.
3-2 to Brandon Nimmo. Strike 3. Kevin Ginkel strands 2.
There we go. That Ginkel at the top of the 8th inning to pretty much take control of business. So the Diamondbacks tonight, they start that 3-game series against the Phillies. You got Merrill Kelly going against Luzardo tonight. Luzardo having a very good year. Hopefully they can keep the string going. Just to let you know, this is Roc and Manuch, Jimmy B on ESPN 620 on FM at 98.7 HD and HD2, plus all our shows on the Arizona Sports app as we are live from Wright Toyota.
Right. And the guys are live from Wright Toyota. Right on the corner, right on the price. Wright Toyota, located at 77th Street and Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard in Scottsdale. Now back to the guys on ESPN 620.
Well, not too much. I mean, I talked to Marv when he came to the pro day, but I mean, I know they got Paris and Barron there too, so I'm just so excited to be with some Buckeyes and with some guys I'm familiar with. So, it's an awesome opportunity.
It's Cody Simon, one of the new linebacker for the Arizona Cardinals. Another Ohio State on this team. It seems like Ohio State is the Cardinals are the Ohio State of the West. But speaking of Ohio State Buckeyes, why wouldn't we? Doug Plank, former safety for the Bears and Ohio State graduate, now joining us here on the Wright Toyota guest line. Doug, it's Manuch alongside Jax. I mean, how many more Ohio State people can we stand on one professional football team? How you doing this afternoon?
Dan, I'm doing great. I was thinking the same thing. I mean, this is like Ohio State West with all the guys that they have on this team. But, that's what you get when you have a national championship. You have a lot of players. They're going to go to a lot of teams.
Well, and I think, Doug, that means something, does it not? When you have teams going to national championships, they're playing big boy ball year in and year out. And, these guys, you take a good look at them. You look at Paris Johnson Jr., you looked at Simon, you look at the guys that are on this team from Ohio State, that matters going to the next level, does it not?
I think it makes a huge difference. And, you and I both, Dan, experienced this rookie situation, surroundings, new players, meeting new coaches. And it really helped me to have a few Ohio State players, on the team that just, that they would go ahead and basically spend more time with me, just in discussing things that, were happening in Chicago and things like that. And so I think it's all a good thing, not just because I was a former Buckeye, but I think, I was just looking at the stats, Dan. That last year, they could have they could have won 3 or 4 games that they lost. The stats were so close. Yeah. I mean, completions, turnovers, turnover margin, you go down the list. They were right there. There was almost like it was split. So, them having almost a 500 schedule or record was not surprising.
Well, and you take a good look at it, and you look at Walter Nolan, obviously the first pick for the Cardinals, defensive tackle. I think they scratched that itch. Will Johnson, the defensive back the cornerback out of Michigan, fell in their lap. It's just still a mystery why he fell so hard. Jordan Birch, the defensive end out of Oregon. You heard Cody Simon there, outstanding linebacker at Ohio State. Denzel Burke, the other Ohio State defensive back or cornerback out of Saguaro High School. The only person taken offensively, Hayden Conner. And then you had Ketan Crawford, the safety out of Nevada. When you're building a defense, Doug, thinking about that Bears defense, the Buddy Ryan Bears 46 defense, you and I talked about this last night. You had dudes all over the place, and nobody could move on them. Therein lies Super Bowl 85 going to the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, no doubt, Dan. You and I both know that if you do not have a line that's qualified, competent, that will play every play, you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble as a quarterback, and it's almost like I was on the flip side being the free safety. How in the heck, when that first year came and I was able to win the starting job at free safety, I never thought in my life I would be the leading tackler on the defense. And it was because there were such big holes, turnovers. I mean, it was really grueling for a safety to think, okay, I'm back here, defending the passing game. No, I was making tackles from 12 yards away when they came through that line of scrimmage. Same thing with you, Dan. We already talked about some great quarterbacks. Unless they get protection back in the pocket, there isn't a play in the offensive playbook that would work with a defensive pass rush that was beating 2 or 3 players on that line of scrimmage.
Doug Plank, former safety at the Chicago Bears and Ohio State, joins us here on the Wright Toyota guest line. Dive into Cody Simon, because the linebacker position, not a lot of people pay attention to just traditional fans, and it's always something about Ohio State that they always produce linebackers year after year. Kind of talk about what kind of impact Cody Simon made, and how do you see him transitioning to the NFL in year one for the Arizona Cardinals?
I mean, Dan, I think he's going to actually be one of the better choices that they've made. Now, a lot of people don't know that, but he was the most valuable player in that game against Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. He's smart, physical, tough, a kid that doesn't make many mistakes. And you and I both know it goes way, way beyond physical talent. If you are mentally deficient, no disrespect there, but if you keep making mistakes over and over and over again, I don't care what team you're on, you are not going to be there. And so, be able to do the things that he did in that game against Notre Dame, that was impressive. And, he's just somebody I like watching, because he's talking, but he realizes what the plays are before the ball is snapped, because he has great anticipation and great recognition of offensive linemen, splits on receivers, and just the overall attitude of the offense.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. Doug Plank joining us here on the right, try to guess him, former Bears safety. When you talk about a young guy going to the Mike linebacker, the quarterback for the defense, we saw this experiment with Zaven Collins, 5 years ago, just didn't pan out. How difficult will that be if they start Cody Simon at that Mike linebacker, and the responsibility, Doug, that'd be on him to call those signals for a young guy?
And it's very intimidating. I was a free safety, and you know about this yourself. When Buddy Ryan came up with the 46 defense, which meant 46, which was my number, was going to play middle linebacker, trying to digest everything. I mean, free safety was so much easier than middle linebacker, because you didn't get hit every play, Dan. Yeah. You could take plays off. Give it say a 50% effort or whatever. But middle linebacker, people are coming after you all the time. And when I was playing that position, I'm very thankful that with the 46 defense, we just attacked. When the ball was snapped, everybody had an assignment. They weren't reading anything. Everybody was off the ball. But I think that he's going to do a great job. You start looking at this, even around the league, Dan, it's not so much, I think teams are favoring colleges over some other colleges as far as draft picks go. But you know what? You know what it's like to play against incredible competition. And, and most of that competition, Dan, is not any different than the NFL. Yeah, I basically was, the next man up guy at Ohio State. I didn't play unless somebody got hurt on defensive secondary. But you know what? I was playing against first-round draft picks my whole time at Ohio State. And you know what? It conditioned me. It prepared me for this NFL. And you'll see sometimes there will be kids that did well in college, but, maybe they weren't against the best of the best, and they came in and they were just kind of lost for a little while. And that might even happen to some of these guys. But, on the other hand, they're taking guys off big name schools. And I really feel good about this team. I mean, I really do. In a long, long time, I think they're getting the right attitudes. They're getting the right performance. It really boils down to just that quarterback position. You know all about that. But, that's going to really determine whether this team goes to the playoffs or not.
Doug, me and Manuch always talk about how offenses are evolving in the NFL. You being a former safety, and it seems like the defensive side, a lot of teams, including the Cardinals this offseason, are prioritizing the defensive line. Do you kind of see that all over the league because of what the Eagles have done? Kind of talk about, from your perspective, how the NFL is evolving in terms of defensively.
You know what? I can't believe you said that. When you're from Pittsburgh, you hate Philadelphia. And when you're from Philadelphia, you hate Pittsburgh. I got to tell you, I was cheering for the Eagles. I love the way they played. They came running out of the field. They ran off the field. They came back on again at halftime. They ran onto the field. I love watching teams that are energetic, enthusiastic, that love playing. And boy, I'll tell you what, they control the line of scrimmage, not just on short yardage, but that was impressive. When the other team knows what you're going to do on offense and you're going to move them out and they still can't stop you, I'm impressed with that. I'm very, very much impressed with that. And you know what? When you have one side of the team that is so powerful like that, without any doubt, the other half, whether it be an offensive or defensive unit, they are going to get better because they're playing against such incredible talent every day that is motivated. We all played with guys that have talent that are unmotivated, and it's not a very good show. But man, I'll tell you what, you get somebody that has talent and he's motivated, look out, because this is going to be a 4-quarter overtime guy. He's never, ever going to stop.
All right, Doug, we got about a minute. Selfishly, as an ex-quarterback, I would have loved to have seen them get a home run hitter, a barn burner on the outside as a receiver, just as a threat. Just have him run down the field and be a threat for those 2 deep high safeties, for that Doug Plank and Gary Fensick back there, just to respect that they've got a guy that can take it to the house versus if they don't, you guys sneaking down to make those tackles you're talking about. Do you think that'll be a detriment for this Cardinals offense by not getting that speedy wide receiver?
You know, I still think they have some fast guys, Dan. You know, and it wasn't a mistake. Gary and I, we were all run support safeties. You know what teams would do, Dan? The first couple plays of the game, I don't think they cared about this. They were going to throw, especially like the Raiders, who had Cliff Branch and other speedsters. Mm-hmm. They would just throw bombs, you know, just to tell the safeties, hey, you guys better not come up here. And you know what? It wasn't without effort, though. I looked at end zone film, Dan, over and over, hours when we played other opponents, and I learned whether it was going to be run or pass by looking at the guards and the centers and the tackles. You know why? They tell you run pass every time. And when they get tired right away in a game. They're going to tell you that they're not going to put on a show. They're not going to try to fake you out because they didn't know I was trying to read them. And so, but you know, when you have a really fast receiver, I'm telling you right now, the defensive backs back up 2 or 3 steps at the snap of the ball. They're already anticipating running down the field. And you know that, and they delay coming up. I would never come up until I saw the handoff or I saw a guard or tackle run across the line of scrimmage, knowing it was going to be a run. No way. If these guys are standing up, man, I'll tell you what, my vision right away went to the fastest guy on that team. And you know, sometimes they still ran by me. You know, I was running like a 4.6 40, 4.65. Hey, you know, these guys are 0.3 of a tenth faster right now. I mean, they're 4.3, and when they get up cruising speed, wow! I tell you what, they eat up yardage fast, and so you better line up. You know, it does make a difference, Dan. You got a speedster. I tell you what, you're going to get some respect by the other team.
Hey, Doug, always a pleasure to catch up with you, hear the great stories. Thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Now, that's Doug Plank. You can also tweet him at DougPlank46. That great 46 defense at Buddy Ryan and those great defenses with Chicago, named after one number 46, that being Doug Plank. And Doug is courtesy of Wright Toyota, the right price, the right selection, Wright Toyota in Scottsdale and Frank Lloyd Wright Boulevard. They have a right deal for everyone. Right now, check out all their inventory or pre-owned certified vehicles under $15,000. All that at WrightToyota.com. That's WrightToyota.com. Well, coming up, it's our Learn and Row one call. That's all. We take a look at what's on tap. We give you the results of our State 40 Roofing It's Your Call question of the day. You're listening to Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B right here on ESPN 620 and on FM at 98.7 HD2. Plus, we're always streaming. If you missed a show, our podcasts are at ArizonaSports.com.
Tired of the same old
That's all call of the day. If you're looking for a full-service law firm, just make one call, that's all. 602-977-1900. Lerner and Rowe, voted Arizona's best law firm.
So on this roster, who would you offer up? Obviously, they're going Phoenix needs picks, right?
I'm not offering really because they got to move KD.
Okay.
They can't run it back with that squad.
That is a fact.
So I got picks, and I might have a younger player, but it sounds crazy. But you can lowball Phoenix right now, because they can't run it back.
That's Jeff Teague on Tuesday with Club 520, a podcast for our Learner One Call. That's all. That the Rockets could lowball Phoenix for KD, and that seems to be kind of the main interest. At least a lot of pundits are talking about there. Interact, need a check, make one call. That's all. 602-977-1900, and always at learnerandrow.com. They can help. Get a free consultation. Again, one call. That's all. 602-977-1900. Jax, before I get to what's on tap, that seems to be kind of the scoop that's out there right now. KD to the Rockets. Rockets need a closer. Whether Supan comes to the Suns or not, that seems to be the one that's got the most traction as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, with the new GM, a lot of teams on the outside have more leverage than the Suns because the Suns know they have to make that move versus them having a closer in Kevin Durant. So it's be interesting to see if they can grab guys that are young, being the Suns, that they can develop into potentially role players or even stars on this team. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with KD.
What's on tap, presented by Roc and Manuch Amber by Dos Equis. Tonight on 98.7. Started about 2 minutes ago at 3:45. The D-backs at the Phillies, again at 98.7. So when you get done listening to Roc and Manuch and Jimmy B, just switch on over. But here on ESPN 620 at 5:30, ESPN NBA playoff, the Rockets versus the Warriors. That's going to be an outstanding game. And then tomorrow on 98.7 at 2:30, if the D-backs pregame show, first pitch at 3:05 will be the D-backs at Phillies. And then on ESPN 620 at 4 o'clock tomorrow, ESPN NBA playoffs, will be the Clippers and Nuggets. Basically, that's for all the marbles. That'll be game 7. And then finally, on Sunday at 10:30, the D-backs pregame show. And then 11:05, the D-backs at Phillies. They will definitely wrap up their 3-game series in reference to all that going. And then also on 620, you can find out on ESPN 620 all weekend long what's happening. But stay tuned in, as there is a plethora of all the things that are definitely going to be going on here on 620 ESPN. All right, State 48 Roofing, it's your call question of the day. For a free quote, repair, installation, head to state48roofing.com. You can follow them on social media by searching hashtag Sexy Roof Status. Just go to X or Twitter, and you can answer this question. Do you agree or disagree with Suns owner Matt Ishbia naming Brian Gregory the new general manager? A, agree, like promoting within, or B, disagree, has no GM experience. Again, go to @Roc and Manuch on X or Twitter to cast your vote.
50-50. Agree, disagree. The results.
Which way did you go?
I went disagree.
I also went disagree. No GM experience. Might be a great evaluator of talent coming out of college. But, folks, I got to tell you what, driving a Saturn versus going to a Ferrari or Lamborghini, that's a whole different world. I wish him the best of luck, and I know he's a great communicator. But this job by the Phoenix Suns is got to be a complete overhaul. Got to be careful, though. Can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But you got to get a new coach.
4 minutes.
You got to get some new personnel in the front office, guys that you want to work with, new scouting, whatever that is, because basically James Jones is out of the way. If you're going to put your stamp on it, there is a lot to go with until mid-June. And basically the playoffs will be over. The NBA title will be over. The work is beginning now. We get that. But right now, as a fan, I'm just not comfortable that this was nothing more than a reorg versus major changes, which Matt Ishbia promised.
Yeah, and I think this is a puzzling first move by Matt Ishbia in a to-do list by Brian Gregory alongside Matt Ishbia for a busy offseason for the Phoenix Suns, because I like what Greg Moore said earlier, talking about he doesn't really know the assistant coaches or head coaches that could fill the role that could be the perfect fit for the Phoenix Suns, but they do need a leader, or someone that's not going to back down from losing. And it seems like losing is the commonality or something that people are just comfortable with around here in the Phoenix Suns organization. The to-do list of Brian Gregory goes as follows: to find a new head coach, Durant trade possibilities, Beal's contract, Devin Booker's extension, reshaping the roster, and expect to focus by reducing the payroll to regain flexibility for future moves, and as well as the draft. They do have the 29th and 52nd overall pick, so it's a busy summer. And Gregory, who's never been a GM before, will have his first moves to set the tone for the next few seasons.
That's only 8 items. That's only 8 items, Jack, you rattled off. I think number one, and I think the biggest key is who's going to be the front office personnel that Matt Ishbia wants to reallocate. Who's your coach going to be? Who's your coaching staff? But, Jackson, the way you laid it out there is several things before they even get down the road of hiring a new coach. Because I got to imagine that if there's a head coach that's worth his salt,
2 minutes.
Whether it's an assistant, whether it's a former head coach, wants to know what's the lay of the land with the Suns. The Suns are in total, I'm not going to say disarray, kind of, sort of, but they're in a reorganizational mode. They're in a way that if a head coach looks at this team, he wants to know, okay, if I'm going to drive this car, what do I have and what don't I have? Not that you have to have everything in the car or everything with a Ferrari engine. You can have an engine that's somewhat scaled back, but knowing how to navigate is what an experienced head coach would do. Knowing how to navigate is what an experienced general manager knows what to do, whether it was a top assistant at some of the teams like OKC or Cleveland, or I don't know, you can look at an experienced guy like Bob Myers that was out there. David Griffin is out there, is with the New Orleans Pelicans. That was a former Phoenix Sun individual. I mean, there is just a ton of things that you're going to take a good look at as a new general manager. Hey, I wish Brian Gregory the best of luck. I just don't like the look. I think it's a security blanket for Matt Ishbia as head coach, that these are guys he knows, versus going out and getting guys that have got experience and have fresh eyes and a fresh look at what's going to be happening with this Phoenix Suns team. Hey, I want to thank all the folks out here at Ride Toyota. They're right on the price in the sales price out here at 78th Street and Frank Lloyd Boulevard. A ton of sales going on. You will definitely not go wrong. So for our guest today, Rick Horrow, for Scott Spreitzer, for Greg Moore, who broke down what this Phoenix Suns team needs to do for Doug
15
Plank.
seconds.
And again, Jack's nice job as usual. Good job filling in. Connor, excellent job. I'm Dan Manucci. I know you have choices. We appreciate you tuning in to Roc and Manuch.